Huh? The last power of the sea realm? What the primordial tower said made Han Fei's heart skip a beat. Before Han Fei asked further, the primordial tower said, just walk in the direction you see until you reach the end, and you'll find out. This sea-quelling god probably can't go there, so I guess only you can see the primordial mystery. Han Fei frowned. I can't take her there? The primordial tower said, I don't know. Even if it can, it's unnecessary. It's up to you. Han Fei nodded slightly and walked out of the primordial tower with Shiman Linglan. As soon as the two of them entered this sea of sand, they immediately felt violent energy rushing at them. This sandstorm contained a little source power. This alone shocked Han Fei. Without the fusion of soul power and power, how could there be source power? Source of chaos. Han Fei immediately thought of something from the divine wood book that teacher prophet left for him. He learned a trace of information about the source of chaos. It seemed that the source of chaos contained source power. Therefore, this sea of sand was definitely related to the source of chaos. Because of the existence of source power, if one wanted to challenge the primordial mystic trial, he had to be at least a god. And if it was just a god, it was far from enough, because it was impossible for them to withstand the invasion of source power for a long time. Therefore, if they wanted to stay here for a long time, they had to be at least at the god-slaying level. Although he was now a dominator, it was undeniable that a god-slaying level powerhouse was definitely a top existence in the Sea of Stars. There didn't seem to be an existence at the level of the sea-quelling god and the ominous. It was either a god-slaying level powerhouse or a dominator. Therefore, the god-slaying level powerhouses of the myriad races corresponded to all levels below the dominator level in the ominous. At this moment, Han Fei also realized that this primordial mystery was probably a place to temper god-slaying level powerhouses. If one studied source power here for a long time, he would have a chance to break through to the sea-quelling god realm. Although the bandit god was not a sea-quelling god, he was stronger than ordinary god-slaying level powerhouses. This was probably because of this place. Of course, the current level of source power invasion couldn't stop Han Fei and Shiman Linglan. In the blink of an eye, the two of them went deep into the sea of sand. Shiman Linglan said, as far as I know, the primordial tower will only allow others to enter this last trial after passing the other trials. I didn't expect him to let me in so easily. Han Fei said, at this critical moment, there aren't so many rules. At this moment, it's good even if you can increase your strength just by a trace. The concentration of source power is increasing. The road ahead won't be easy. In just a moment, the strength of the source power here had risen to the level of the Star River source power. Of course, Han Fei and Shiman Linglan had actually walked very far. Han Fei frowned slightly. You can just wait for me here. According to the primordial tower, there shouldn't be any danger here. Besides, this kind of trial is meaningless to me. It's impossible for it to hurt me. Okay. Han Fei was a little surprised. Huh? You're a little abnormal today. Shiman Linglan smiled and said, this is just a trial. If this trial can take the life of a dominator on the same side, then the person who set up the trial must be stupid. However, you still have to come back early. Everyone is waiting for you. Okay. Han Fei nodded. He didn't want to waste much time in the first place. When Han Fei walked forward alone, after only 10 seconds, he felt that the power here was completely composed of source power and star river source power. After another 10 seconds, there was only star river source power left. In a sense, only the place where the primordial tower appeared was truly suitable for trials. Here could no longer be considered a trial. Bang! Hanfei walked out of the power of the sandstorm, only to see a vast sea of fire in the next moment. Huh? Is this the chaotic fire domain? No, it's an extremely powerful chaotic fire, filled with star river source power. It's not something the chaotic fire domain can compare to. Hanfei couldn't help but look back. So the sea of sand just now was actually the chaotic sand sea? Hanfei moved forward extremely fast. No power could stop him now. After a while, the scene in front of Hanfei changed again. It was a land of ice and snow. This place had the power of extreme cold and the power to freeze sea-quelling gods. Hanfei couldn't help but feel shocked. This place was definitely deliberately built by someone, and this person was extremely strong. Further back, Hanfei walked through the chaotic water domain, the chaotic thunder domain, and a storm sea. In the end, the moment he stepped out of the storm, everything returned to peace. Hanfei felt unparalleled vitality. And in his eyes, what appeared was a huge divine tree. This tree was billions of kilometers away, towering into the endless void. There was no fruit on the tree, nor were there any creatures, but it had infinite origin vitality. The world origin of the sea realm? Hanfei knew what this was. Just like the Tao domain sunflower head in the demon domain, this was the world origin of the entire sea realm. However, in such a place, there was a table under the tree with 7 pearls lined up on it. In addition to the pearls, there was also a cup of tea. The light green tea in the cup emitted some steam, as if someone had just cooked it. In front of the table, there was a futon cushion as if a guest was entertained. Hanfei paused for a moment, then stepped forward, came to the table, and slowly sat down. Buzz. The moment Hanfei sat down, light and shadow intertwined opposite him, and a half-illusory man appeared. This person was dressed in red and looked handsome. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, but there was a trace of arrogance in his eyes, so he looked a little arrogant and lazy. In addition, Hanfei felt a will similar to his. Is this a supreme? Another dominator who has cleared the path of a supreme. The man said softly, Wang Han? Hanfei thought for a moment and nodded slightly. Li Daoi? Yes. It was not difficult to guess this person was Li Daoi. Since the chaotic era, if someone could master the supreme divine technique, he was definitely not a nobody. As for the main representatives of the primordial era, in addition to the 3 temples, the most famous were Li Daoi, patriarch of the myriad gods, and Jiang Taichu. Jiang Taichu had long become the ominous, and Li Daoi was probably the only one who could master the supreme divine technique and was within the range of the 6 lineages. Although he had the dual bloodlines of humans and demon plants, he was still within the range of the 6 lineages. Even the guardian of the human race, Qing Ming, once said that apart from the luck of the 6 lineages, Li Daoi had 80% of the chaotic luck alone. It could be said that Li Daoi had extremely good talent and luck. At first, he even had the demon purification pot. Then, he killed through the primordial world and took away an ominous alone. Of course, in addition to the above deduction, Hanfei was certain that this Person was Li Daoi because he had seen this person before. In the past, in the astral trial of the heavenly race, Han Fei had seen this person through the memories of the primordial star tree. In the chaotic era, Han Fei knew that when Li Daoi was born, it triggered brilliant astronomical phenomena. He had 3 peerless Dao seeds in the form of a divine tree, a Kylin, and a phoenix on him. It was definitely not a coincidence that the person in the primordial star tree happened to have a divine tree, a Kylin, and a phoenix around him. Therefore, it shouldn't be the first time he met Li Daoi. However, Han Fei never expected to meet Li Daoi here. Besides, according to Chen Lingsu and Jing Guangming, Li Daoi had clearly embarked on the path of no return, so what was left here could only be a wisp of consciousness or soul. Li Daoi looked at Han Fei and smiled. I've heard of you, but unfortunately, I didn't meet you. But I knew you would come. Now that you're here, I'll leave the power of the 7 domains to you. Han Fei frowned. Can you make it clearer? Are you waiting for me? Li Daoi said, is it difficult to guess? The fact that you can come here means that you have already mastered the supreme divine technique. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be qualified to enter this place. Since you have mastered the supreme divine technique and have the demon purification pot, is there a problem with me giving you the power of the 7 domains? Han Fei asked, I'm not the only one who has come here, am I? Why me? Li Daoi said lazily, because you are a supreme. You should be the strongest in this era, so if I don't give these things to you, who do you think I can give them to? Han Fei looked at the 7 pearls on the table and said calmly, I passed by 6 chaotic divine realms. Why are there 7 pearls? Li Daoi smiled and said, doesn't what you're stepping underfoot count? Han Fei couldn't help but look up at the boundless tree. Is this also the power of a domain? Li Daoi said, this is the world tree, which supports the endless creatures of billions of races on the chaotic vast land. However, the world tree is the last power of the chaotic vast land. I hope you will never need to use it. Han Fei was silent for a moment. You waited for me just to tell me this? Yes. Li Daoi chuckled. I know that the situation in your era is very bad. In fact, the situation in my era is not much better. However, your existence at least let me know that the Sea of Stars lasted until your era. Then I won't have a chance to use some trump cards. I can only wait for someone who can take them. Boyd won't do. He has his mission. The others are not strong enough. I have no choice but to wait for you. Han Fei raised his eyebrows. Even the death god and the master of time can't take these domains? Li Daoi shook his head with a smile. That old B** starred time is too weak in fighting to take it. The death god and the world tree are born enemies, so he can't completely take it either. The patriarch of the myriad gods is too ambitious. If the power of the 7 domains falls into his hands, it will be used by him as a trump card soon. Jiang Taichu is too radical. Betting on him is too risky. If it weren't for the lack of manpower, the path of reincarnation wouldn't have fallen on him. The others aren't strong enough. The corners of Han Fei's mouth twitched. How do you know I can do it? Li Daoi smiled. It's not that you can do it, but the supreme technique can do it. With that said, Li Daoi waved his hand, and a certain power seemed to be erased from the 7 pearls. He said, chaotic sand sea, chaotic sea of fire, chaotic ice domain, chaotic water domain, chaotic thunder domain, chaotic storm, and the world tree. In my estimation, the possibility of killing the ominous with these 7 chaotic origin divine realms is too small. Unless the power of the 7 domains erupts at the same time, we can only defend slowly. Each domain can block the ominous for about 3,000 years. Although the time is short, there's no way. Do you have anything to ask? Han Fei pondered for a moment. 3,000 years was actually not short in the current sea of stars. Even eldest senior brother had said that the sea of stars could still be defended for 10,000 years, but now it was obviously uncertain. If these 7 divine realms could resist the ominous for 20,000 years, it would be a blessing. Han Fei didn't have anything to ask. He had come here to find opportunities and see if he could improve his strength. Now it seemed that there were some opportunities, but the power to protect the sea realm couldn't increase his personal strength. Han Fei said, "We can't defeat the ominous because we're not strong enough. Therefore, how can I continue to improve my strength after mastering the supreme technique?" Li Daoi smiled. "Once you become a supreme, your strength will be much stronger than that of ordinary dominators. Therefore, the improvement method of ordinary dominators is not suitable for you. Now that your supreme bone has been formed, what can improve you is only your soul and physique, the Tao of all living beings, the path of invincibility, and control of the power of the heavenly Tao. Among them, the improvement of the soul and physique can strengthen your strength, but it's very limited. I'm afraid it's already the limit to increase your strength by 30%. Han Fei's eyes glittered. 30% was also strength. He said, "How can I strengthen it? There are almost no resources in the current sea of stars that can support me." Li Daoi smiled and said, "There is still one. If you cleanse yourself with the source of chaos, you can complete the improvement of your physique and soul in 100,000 years. 100,000 years? Han Fei's face sank slightly. He knew how to get to the source of chaos. If he could accelerate time, he should be able to make it with his current mastery of the law of time. Han Fei said, "I don't think I can walk on the Tao of all living beings." "How about your road of invincibility?" Han Fei wasn't sure if Li Daoi had embarked on the path of invincibility, but anyone who could become a supreme seemed to have embarked on the path of invincibility, just like the first supreme, Songtian, and him. Li Daoi said, "In the end, I failed to step onto the 3rd level. I can only say that I was half a step on that road, but in the end, I couldn't go to the source of chaos. You will know what I mean there." Han Fei nodded slightly. Li Daoi hadn't embarked on the 3rd level of the path of invincibility either, but it was already very beneficial for him to point the way. "What does the control of the power of the heavenly Tao mean?" Li Daoi explained patiently, "A supremes will transcend the heavens, and a supreme is not bound by the heavenly Tao here, but they are not strong enough to suppress the heavens and be comparable to the rules of the world. However, supremes can borrow the power of the heavens and earth to the greatest extent. However, this is not a good way, because the heavenly Tao will devour your will. It's precisely because of this that generations of supremes and dominators have embarked on the path of no return. This is because in their opinion, this chaotic star sea can no longer improve them. They can't improve themselves, nor can they beat the ominous. This is the predicament of the dominators of the chaotic star sea. I can't break it either." Han Fei asked, "So you embarked on the path of no return alone?" Li Daoi nodded slightly. It can't be helped. Someone has to try. Besides, the ominous forces you to step on that path. Will you step on it or not? The ominous forced you to walk that path? Li Dowie smiled and said, they're not stupid. They know I'm powerful, so forcing me away was the most direct and effective way. Han Fei couldn't help but say, the chaotic star sea is only so big. Don't the ominous have a base camp? Even if they absorb the negative energy of the myriad races, there has to be a process of formation. Besides, there are only so many people in the myriad races. The overall strength of the ominous army is much stronger than the myriad races. Li Dowie said, at first, just like you, I tried to find and destroy the source of the ominous. But in fact, there is no such place in the chaotic star sea. Besides, the negative side of the myriad races alone can't nurture such a powerful enemy. Until one day, I personally witnessed the arrival of the ominous. They came from an unknown world outside the chaotic star sea, opened by some power. I tried to kill my way in, but there was endless ominous mist and negative will there. I almost died there. Han Fei's pupils were constricted. An ominous world? Li Dowie shook his head. I don't know, but that world is definitely not completely composed of negative wills. Besides, since it's a world independent of the chaotic star sea, there can't be only one ominous. For example, although there are very few supremes in the chaotic star sea, there will always be someone who becomes a supreme, right? Han Fei said, isn't it said that the ominous is immortal and indestructible? If ominous-level powerhouses were born frequently, there should be a lot of them now, right? Li Dowie said, I don't know. The ominous is immortal and indestructible, this is a claim the ominous made itself. No one can be sure of it. The tea is going to be cold. Once I put down the 7 divine realms, I'll dissipate. Do you have any other questions? Han Fei thought for a moment and shook his head slightly. He extended his hand, and a butterfly hairpin appeared in his palm. He said, I have no more questions, but someone is waiting for you, and she has been waiting for you for a long time. When he saw the butterfly hairpin, the laziness on Li Dowie's body finally disappeared. His gaze fell on the hairpin and he sighed slightly. Li Dowie just looked at the butterfly hairpin in a daze. It wasn't until his body began to fade that he looked at Han Fei. Keep it for me. Watching Li Dowie dissipate, Han Fei silently put away the hairpin and couldn't help but smile. He was indeed a supreme. He still believed that his original body could survive even now. Han Fei said casually, okay. Maybe one day, I'll go to find you. With that, Han Fei picked up the cup of tea on the table. The tea was warm, and Han Fei drank it in one gulp. He felt that 7 different powers gathered in his body at the same time. At that moment, the 7 divine realms here were all in his heart. Han Fei could see that Shimin Linglan was still moving forward in the chaotic sand sea. Her steps were slow but powerful. She was using this to polish herself. Shimin Linglan was not worried about Han Fei this time, so she used this chance to temper herself. However, she had only walked a little when Han Fei appeared beside her with a swish. Shimin Linglan said in surprise, so fast? It's only been half an hour. Han Fei smiled and said, as I said, there's no danger here in the first place. Okay, now that this matter is over, we should go. Shimin Linglan said regretfully, what a pity. This is indeed a good place to polish. There are better places. After a while, when Han Fei took Shimin Linglan into the path of reincarnation. Again, they followed the river of laws against the current again. In just one day, they completed the path that they took 180 years to complete and appeared in front of the source of chaos again. Shimin Linglan was puzzled. Here? Han Fei said, the source of chaos can nourish the demon purification pot. It should be extraordinary. It was meaningless to come before, but now it's very beneficial to me. If you can't withstand it after entering, I'll send you back to the sea realm first. I'll come out in 100 years. Shimin Linglan, I can hold on. Shimin Linglan didn't believe that with the power of the sea-quelling god, she would be reduced to the point where she couldn't stay in an environment. Besides, she wasn't an ordinary sea-quelling god now. Han Fei pressed one hand in the grey mist. In an instant, under the influence of the power of the Dominator, a hole appeared in the source of chaos. Han Fei immediately pulled Shimin Linglan into it. As soon as he entered this place, Han Fei's heart trembled. This place was completely made of Star River source power, and infinite laws were surging. Here, a protective barrier immediately appeared around Shimin Linglan. Under the impact of the endless laws and source power, Shimin Linglan had to use her strongest state to barely stay here. Can you hold on? Shimin Linglan gritted her teeth. Yes. With that, the law of time surged around Shimin Linglan, and she actually slowed down time by hundreds of times. Han Fei immediately understood what she meant, because the circulation of the Star River source power was too violent. Although the sea-quelling god could also mobilize the Star River source power, it wouldn't be so fast. However, if she slowed down time and formed a time barrier, although the effect would be greatly reduced, she still blocked the rinsing of the Star River source power and the endless laws. The success of time deceleration meant that time could be accelerated here. After all, this place contained infinite laws, so theoretically speaking, the power of laws wouldn't be banned. At this moment, Shimin Linglan was already sitting cross-legged, dealing with the cleansing of the Star River source power. Han Fei glanced at this strange space. Earlier, he had only glanced outside and saw that there seemed to be countless star rivers circulating here. But when he really came in at this moment, he discovered that these circulating star rivers should be projections in the sea of stars. Furthermore, they were actually not star rivers, but huge star domains. And each star domain might contain tens of millions of star rivers. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. He couldn't help but think of Teacher Prophet's description of the third path of invincibility. It could swallow the heavens and earth, control the power of the heavens and earth, refine a star domain. After obtaining it, with a thought, one could obtain the power of a domain, maintain the invincible momentum, and greatly increase his strength. Han Fei didn't have any concept of this before, because the star domain was a very vague description. Hundreds of stars gathered, which could also be called a star domain. A few light years could also become a star domain, and a star river could also become a star domain. But Han Fei knew that these were not the kind of star domains mentioned in the description of the path of invincibility, because they were too small. In the Dominator realm, Han Fei could mobilize the Star River source power of 9 pieces of star rivers at any time. This was already a very large star domain. However, the star domain Han Fei saw today was a little beyond his imagination. No wonder Li Daoi couldn't reach the third level of the path of invincibility. Who the hell could swallow so many star rivers? Even if it were the Dominator level little black and little white, no one would know how long it would take for them to swallow them. Besides, the so-called heavens and earth swallowing on the path of invincibility was a kind of devouring and control of the laws of the world. If he really swallowed such a huge star domain, the result would probably be the backlash of the heavenly Tao, and he would be assimilated by the world. Han Fei couldn't help but smile bitterly. He understood why Li Daoi asked him to come. He wanted to tell him that if he wanted to reach the third level of the path of invincibility, he had to take it slow and swallow the heavenly Tao of this huge star domain bit by bit. And indirectly, he wanted to tell him that this method was extremely dangerous. If he wasn't careful, he might suffer a backlash. Forget it. It seems that there's no hope for me to reach the third level of the path of invincibility for the time being. If Han Fei had billions of years, he could give it a try. But he didn't, so the method of slowly swallowing the heavens and earth wasn't feasible for him. If there was still a trace of hope for the third level, then there was almost no hope for the fourth level of the path of invincibility. This was because in this source of chaos, Han Fei could see tens of millions of star domains. If he wanted to reach the fourth level of the path of invincibility and control the chaos, he had to master the myriad Daos of the heavens and earth. It was almost impossible. Not to mention him, even the First Supreme had obediently embarked on the path of no return and didn't pursue the so-called fourth level of the path of invincibility. With this in mind, Han Fei immediately calmed down and sat cross-legged to receive the baptism of the source of chaos. Compared to the path of invincibility, it was more reliable to cleanse the body and soul. 32 years later. On the other side of the chaotic sea, in the ruins of stars, there was a Skynet made of purified stars, but it was now dilapidated. There was only less than one Skynet left. Most of them had already turned into star ruins. Even though the last Skynet could barely hold on, many purified stars had died, and only 10 or 20% of them were left. On every star, there was at least one monarch guarding it. There were as many as 10 million of them. Of course, most of them were at the peak of the carefree level or the early stage of the immortal level. However, this didn't mean that there were many strong masters in the sea realm. There was only one battlefield left in the 1081 domains of the Sea of Stars. Therefore, these people were all the combat power in this chaotic star sea. At the forefront of this sky net was a magnificent palace, comparable to half of the sea realm. The ancient astral city wall was engraved with Tao patterns and arrays. Above this huge palace, a mysterious spiritual treasure with 9 rings was spinning all the time. The Tao patterns on the city wall were flashing at all times, causing the huge palace to burst out with a purifying light that spanned dozens of light years when it was driven. At this moment, a time river bloomed in the boundless ruins in front of the palace. Time chains and time phantoms spread dozens of light years here. At this time, a middle-aged man in a golden robe and a golden crown stood. And outside the time river, on the remains of a star, senior sister Shenlu was sitting on the ground, holding a wine calabash in one hand and hanging on a piece of rubble with the other. A drop of blood slid down from senior sister Shenli's fingertip. As soon as the drop of blood dripped, it turned into a red light and instantly appeared 100,000 light years away. There, a boundless ominous mist, like a sandstorm, was sweeping towards the palace. Bang! The drop of blood fell into the sandstorm, producing a loud bang. The blood burned in the void, shaking the vast ominous mist. The bloody light was powerful, like a barrier, locking the sea of stars, and burning God knew how much ominous mist. Anyway, the rolling ominous mist was shaken by this drop of blood and began to burn, stopping its advance. The Master of Time said, "What will come will come. The first battlefield has already reached its limit and lost 70% of its combat power. Now, even if we can buy some time, the ominous is no longer willing to wait." Gulp. Senior Sister Shunla raised her head and took a sip of hard liquor. She wiped her mouth with her sleeve. "It's too short. Thousands of years is not enough. At all." The Master of Time said, "Be content. Fortunately, he has cleared the supreme path. We still have hope in this battle. Otherwise, you would have definitely died in this battle." Heh. Senior Sister Shunla sneered. "Why are you so weak in fighting? You're not weak, but your combat power is mediocre." The Master of Time snorted. "The Death God can fight, but why didn't he come to guard it? In terms of defense, only Void can compare to me. Be content." Bah. Senior Sister Shunla spat out a mouthful of blood and reappeared 100,000 light years away. Senior Sister Shunla looked back and said indifferently, "Inform the people to prepare for war." In the palace behind, many sea-quelling gods frowned when they heard this. These people looked at each other and could see some helplessness in each other's eyes. Then, voices were transmitted from the palace to the Skynet behind the palace. "Everyone, prepare to deal with the enemy. Everyone, this may be our last battle. Once the purification stars can't take it anymore, move nearby and enter other evolved stars. Success or failure depends on this. Everyone, hold on a little longer." Woo-woo. The horn resounded throughout the Skynet, and countless people were shuttling between the purification stars, seeming to be in position. Someone cursed, "These damn things, it seems impossible to eliminate them. It's only been 5 days, and they're already making a comeback? Damn it, they were pushed out by Master Dominator a few days ago. Have they forgotten? They must be stupid." Someone shouted, "Hey! Who has wine over there? I'll exchange it with energy crystals. Before the battle, I want to have a drink. Can anyone satisfy me?" Someone sneered. "What are you thinking? Who doesn't have a lot of energy crystals now? How can they be as rare as hard liquor?" Someone teased, "I told you not to refine your origin star, but now you're too strong to make wine, right?" The man retorted, "Heh, you make it sound like you're better than me." Countless people laughed and chatted to relieve the pressure on them. In a certain piece of the Skynet, there was a group of people who hadn't dispersed yet. Han Chani was in a fit of pique. "Mom, we need people now. I'm already at the immortal level. I can guard a purification star alone." "No." Xiao Xiaochan refused immediately. She would never allow Han Chani to guard it alone. This was not because she was too doting, but because there was a precedent. If she hadn't been paying attention all the time, if Luo Xiaobai and Han Song hadn't taken action in time, Han Chani would have been seriously injured even if she didn't die. Lu Renquang said, Pan Pan, Xiao Xiao, don't fight. This battle is different from before. Just follow Auntie Xiaobai and your father." Zhang Xuanyu also said, "If we really want to seek death, wait until we die." Han Chani glared at Han Song, who had turned into a divine bamboo. Are you really not coming back? Isn't such a long time enough for you to find your little lover? You don't even want us? Cough, cough. Han Fei coughed awkwardly. My original body didn't appear. Something must have delayed me. Don't worry. If this battle is the ultimate battle, my original body will definitely appear. Yes, as Han Fei's avatar, Han Song was scolded by Han Chani every day. At first, she thought that Han Fei had gone to do something big, but when she asked Xia Xiaochan, she found out that he had gone to meet his lover. Although Xia Xiaochan told her about Han Fei's past, the longer Han Fei was away, the more Han Chani complained. At this moment, Luo Xiaobai said indifferently, "Okay, you can all leave." The pressure on the god-slaying level battlefield is even greater. Yes, in the past 2,000 years, Xia Xiaochan and the other two had transcended the divine tribulation 200 years ago. In the beginning, they didn't think they could become gods. But with the spirit of plants and trees that Han Fei left for them, the three of them narrowly passed the god realm and became god-slaying level powerhouses. But because the time was too short, the god-slaying level was already their limit. As for Luo Xiaobai, she was still a great monarch. She had learned from Han Fei's fifth senior brother about a legendary human in the history of the Sea of Stars. After hearing about his deeds, she had no intention of making a breakthrough. Therefore, even if she would rather die, she didn't want to make a breakthrough. Xia Xiaochan said, "Xiaobai, I'll leave it to you." Luo Xiaobai nodded and then looked at Han Song. "Go away too. You're too big. And will be easily targeted." Han Fei. On the first battlefield. The ominous came quite quickly, because they were not moving forward in a normal way at all. On the way to the first battlefield, the endless void along the way was engraved with ominous mist at the same time. In less than half a day, the boundless ominous mist was less than 50,000 light-years away from the first battlefield. Ordinary people couldn't sense the ominous mist, but all sea-quelling gods were shocked at this moment, because there were too many of the ominous this time. Suddenly, the Master of Time said solemnly, "As I expected, the ominous mist that blocked the chaotic sea has surrounded us. It seems that they want to kill all the strong masters of the myriad races here before we recover." Senior Sister Shunla sneered. "It just so happens that I can finish this battle in one fell swoop." In the next moment, in Senior Sister Shunli's sea of consciousness, the void mark flashed. Little junior brother Han Fei, who was cultivating in seclusion, was already cultivating hard. At this moment, his flesh and blood were shining, but what was important was not his flesh and blood, but his double spiritual heritage. According to Li Daoi, the rinsing of the source of chaos could increase his strength by about 30%. However, Han Fei didn't think that was the case. This was because the source of chaos also rinsed dual spiritual heritages, and the black hole intertwined with dual spiritual heritages seemed to have changed. Not only could it accommodate more source power, but it was also more solid. At this moment, Han Fei had only been cleansed for 50,000 years, and his comprehensive strength had increased by 30%. He could feel that he still had at least 20 to 30% room for improvement. Suddenly, Han Fei, who was cultivating, felt the void mark tremble. Little junior brother. Buzz. Han Fei suddenly opened his eyes. Of course, he knew what it meant for Senior Sister Shunlu to take the initiative to find him. Obviously, the final battle on the first battlefield had begun more than 80 years earlier than expected. In fact, this error was already very small. Senior Sister Shunlu had already bought him a lot of time. Han Fei immediately replied, "Senior Sister, I'm here." Senior Sister Shunlu said, "Be prepared to come at any time. Wait for my news. When I call you, you must arrive within a second." Okay. Han Fei agreed, but then he asked, "Senior Sister, the war has already started? Can I go there directly? At least this way, I can avoid more unnecessary sacrifices." Senior Sister Shunli's voice carried a hint of exhaustion. A general's success is built on tens of thousands of bones. I used the strong masters of the Sea of Stars as bait and finally attracted this deciding game. You are the most important part. With that, Senior Sister Shunlu fell silent, and Han Fei's heart trembled. Using the strong masters of the Sea of Stars as bait? It was indeed in line with Senior Sister Shunli's temper. If he lost this battle, the Sea of Stars would be doomed. If all the strong masters were destroyed, even if there were still some Dominator-level powerhouses left, what was the use? Another half a day passed. On the first battlefield, all the sea-quelling gods had already sensed it. In addition to the ominous mist outside the palace, on the battlefield behind, there was also an ominous mist coming from the direction of the raging sea. It could be said that the corner where the first battlefield was located had been completely surrounded. There was no escape except fighting the battle. However, on this battlefield, except for the Master of Time and Senior Sister Shunlu, there were only 3 Dominator-level powerhouses and 29 sea-quelling gods. Yes, this was the peak combat power of the first battlefield. Of the 3 Dominators, 2 were strong masters of the 6 lineages, and only 1 was a strong master of an outsider race. Before, they had been cultivating in seclusion because they were only ordinary dominators. It was extremely difficult for them to advance further after stepping into this realm. Therefore, they had been cultivating in seclusion and trying to improve themselves. But now, they had no choice but to come out of seclusion. But even so, 3 ordinary dominators couldn't change the situation. This was because the dominator rank was much more ominous than they had imagined. At this moment, Senior Sister Shunlu said, "Old 5-6 God, Lei Heng, Dark Shadow, Yulinka, and Qiongqi, the rear battlefield is yours. Feng Yu, no matter what happens in this battle, you are not allowed to make a breakthrough. The Sea of Stars doesn't lack a god or a god-slaying level powerhouse like you. If you want to make a breakthrough, you have to be at least a sea-quelling god. Do you understand?" Holding a wine calabash, 5th senior brother said calmly, "That's true." On a certain purification star in the rear, Feng Yu clutched her mouth, her face full of regret. She despised herself. It was too fast. This ominous battle had erupted too quickly. If she had been given more time, she might have been able to succeed. Senior Sister Shunlu didn't reply. She appeared 100,000 light-years away. Alone. In terms of combat power, she was the strongest here. Because the Master of Time was very weak in fighting, in this full-scale battle, she could only temporarily resist the ominous that seemed to have surpassed the Dominator rank alone. This ominous was much stronger than ordinary Dominator-level ominous creatures, but his combat power didn't reach the upper limit of his and the Master of Time's endurance, so they just suspected that he had surpassed the Dominator rank. Shenle had seen the real ominous that exceeded the Dominator level. It was clearly much stronger than this person. Senior Sister Dark Shadow frowned. Fifth Senior Brother, Senior Sister Shin. Lee's injuries are not optimistic. Fifth Senior Brother said leisurely, she knows what she's doing. I know you want to fight head-on, but the physique of the god-slaying demon puppet can only block one Dominator-level ominous at most. Facing that one, you will definitely die. Lei Heng sighed. There are so few strong masters in the Sea of Stars now. Isn't it a little too few for only the 6 of us to block the entire rear? Senior Brother 6 God smiled and said, do you really think there are only the 6 of us? Lei Heng was stunned. What are you talking about? Oh, our Senior Brother. Azure Dragon and Little Junior Brother coming? Sizzle, ah. Fifth Senior Brother took a sip of hard liquor and smiled. Aren't they already here? Buzz. In the next moment, 2 huge distanceless gates suddenly appeared in the Sea of Stars at the same time. Roar. Roar. Dragon roars sounded here, and from the distanceless gate, dragons rushed out. One after another. Obviously, the entire dragon race was already prepared, waiting for the battle to begin. And the only thing that could send them over was the distanceless gate. At this moment, as a piece of time intertwined, Senior Brother Azure Dragon didn't appear from the distanceless gate, but walked out of time. Senior Brother 6, God took a look. Huh. Senior Brother Azure Dragon, did you go to the Time Temple? Senior Brother Azure Dragon smiled. I have no choice. Time is tight. Unfortunately, I still can't make the breakthrough in time. Seeing this, Fifth Senior Brother couldn't help but ask, why do I feel that? You seem to have made a breakthrough? Senior Brother Azure Dragon shook his head. For now. As he spoke, Senior Brother Azure Dragon looked at the dragon army. Everyone below the god level, except for the Origin Guards, enter the Skynet and choose a purification star as your stronghold. Everyone above the Monarch level, guard in front of the Skynet. I don't need you here. The old dragon god asked, shall I stay? Senior Brother Azure Dragon shook his head. There are so many people for you to take care of, Dragon God. I took all the top combat power of the dragon race here to participate in the battle, not to send them to death. In the dragon race, in addition to Senior Brother Azure Dragon, there was the old dragon god, 2 god slayers, 5 gods, and 100,000 monarch realm dragons. In terms of the power of a race alone, such power was actually extremely terrifying. However, on the first battlefield, there were tens of millions of monarchs, so the power of the dragon race was not so conspicuous. However, when 100,000 dragons poured into the Skynet, many people were still shocked. The dragon race is here. I knew it. The news of a great victory on the dragon battlefield just came out a while ago, but I didn't see any dragons on the first battlefield. So they only appeared in the end. 100,000 monarchs. Rumor has it that the dragon race is declining. Do they look like they're in decline? Unfortunately, 100,000 monarchs are still not enough. What are you talking about? It's better than nothing, right? In the past, 100,000 monarchs could sweep through countless ominous battlefields. Behind. Lei Heng was puzzled. Senior Brother Azure Dragon, are you alone? Where's Little Junior Brother? Senior Brother Azure Dragon said indifferently, he will come when he should. As for the others, they have come. On the battlefield in the rear, a palace master and 3 sea-quelling god Level powerhouses of the Time Temple walked out of time. The palace master of the Time Temple nodded slightly. Greetings, everyone. From the Void Temple. With that, behind the leader of the Time Palace, the Time River appeared. The 3 sea-quelling god-level powerhouses also activated the Time River. For a moment, countless time chains surged out of the Time River and locked the void. Behind. Lei Heng muttered, "It seems that in this era, only the 3 temples can resist the ominous. If the 10 Yama kings can come, it will be complete." Senior brother 6 God teased, "If everyone comes, who will guard the sea realm?" Bang! While everyone was talking, a loud bang suddenly swept across the sky above. The entire Skynet. With the strength of the sea-quelling gods, it could be seen that at the front line, Senior Sister Shenlu had already started a war with a humanoid ominous creature. The collision just now was caused by Senior Sister Shenlu being blasted down and hitting the time-sealing sky lock. Tweet. At the moment she hit the time-sealing lock, Senior Sister Shenlu held a blood feather in her hand and swept away all the ominous mist within a light year. Then, she slashed out and cut open the humanoid ominous she was fighting. However, the humanoid ominous was unmoved. Its body instantly healed, and it materialized an ominous hand that spanned billions of kilometers, preparing to slap Senior Sister Shenlu. The ominous didn't care where a battle broke out. If they could kill the strong masters of the myriad races here, with the aftershock of their battle, they were naturally happy to do so. However, Senior Sister Shenlu was unwilling. A nebula rose to the sky behind her. This huge nebula turned into the form of a divine bird, and its 2 feathers unfolded, bathing in blood-colored brilliance. Whoosh! The nebula bird's feathers waved, and wherever the blood-colored energy passed, all the ominous mist turned into nothingness. It met the huge palm and caused the sky billions of kilometers to collapse. Senior Sister Shenlu didn't dare to hold back. She wanted to take this person away, or at least, she couldn't fight here. Senior Sister Shenli's body transformed and turned crimson. The ominous that seemed to have surpassed the Dominator level sneered. "Shen Lu, the battle has just started, and you're already using your blood body. It seems that you're indeed seriously injured." Senior Sister Shenlu spat. "I'll still beat you. He he he. How long can you last? A year, 2 years?" Senior Sister Shenlu ignored this person. Her sharp claws tore through the sky, and the claw marks spread out, tearing straight at the endless ominous mist. Wherever the 3 claw marks passed, the ominous mist was cut open like paper, and these claw marks showed no signs of stopping. Senior Sister Shenlu shouted, "Unless you can break through the barrier of the time sky sealing lock, if you still fight me here, I don't mind killing my way into the ominous mist. Let's see how long it will take you to kill me." The humanoid ominous creature snorted and retreated, stepping into an endless void. Seeing this, Senior Sister Shenlu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She glanced at the Master of Time. "I'll leave this place to you." The aftershock of the battle was too great for a Dominator, especially for Senior Sister Shenlu and the ominous creature who seemed to have surpassed the Dominator realm. If it weren't for the time-sealing lock of the Master of Time, the strong masters of the myriad races would have been destroyed 100 times. At this moment, Senior Sister Shenlu was naturally relieved to be able to temporarily push back this humanoid Dominator. After Senior Sister Shenlu and the ominous that seemed to have surpassed the Dominator level left, 3 Dominator-level ominous creatures suddenly appeared in the ominous mist. The 3 of them borrowed the infinite mist to forcibly annihilate the power of Senior Sister Shenli's claw. At the same time, the 3 Dominators except for Senior Sister Shenlu and the Master of Time had already stepped out to meet the Dominator level. Ominous. In such a war, there was no such thing as reserve strength, nor was there any way to preserve strength. The combat power of a Dominator-level powerhouse was almost infinite. He could keep fighting, so it didn't make much sense to reserve strength. The 3 Dominators attacked together and activated the Star River source power, blocking the entire ominous mist. They didn't attack just to deal with the 3 Dominator-level ominous creatures. They wanted to lure out more Dominator-level ominous creatures. If there weren't Dominator-level ominous creatures, the ominous mist alone couldn't move forward. Sure enough, the moment the 3 Dominators took action, 3 more Dominator-level ominous creatures appeared in the ominous mist. On average, they fought 2 alone. The 3 of them knew that it was about time, so they took away 6 Dominator-level ominous creatures. Perhaps they could take away more, but if they wanted to kill the other party as soon as possible and come back to participate in the battle, they couldn't wait anymore. If it was really 3 against 1, the result might not be good. Even if the ominous combat power was on average weaker than the strong masters of the myriad races, they had more people. When the number reached a certain level, this combat power gap would naturally be made up. The 3 Dominators took away 6 Dominator-level ominous creatures. At this moment, only the sea-quelling god could fight. In the future, there were a total of 29 sea-quelling gods here. Now, with Senior Brother Azure Dragon, the Dragon God, the Palace Master of Time, and the 3 sea-quelling gods, there were 35 of them. But on the rear battlefield, including Senior Brother Azure Dragon and the Dragon God, 12 sea-quelling gods went. On the Time Master's side, there were still 2 Palace Masters of Time who didn't appear. There were only 20 sea-quelling gods left. However, these 20 sea-quelling gods couldn't all fight. At least one of them had to be left to protect the Skynet. Therefore, only 19 people could fight. In the end, at this moment, the 19 sea-quelling gods were already prepared and were divided into 3 teams. Their goal was to block the 3 Dominator-level ominous creatures. They were not like the Palace Master of the Time Palace who could revive ancient creatures, nor were they like the 10 Yama Kings who were weirdly undead. They were also not like 5th Senior Brother and Senior Brother Azure Dragon who could unleash Dominator-level combat power. But this didn't mean that they would be weak. In fact, it was already commendable that an average of 6 people could resist 1 Dominator-level ominous. After all, the gap between the sea-quelling god and a Dominator was far greater than imagined. If it were the Dominators of the myriad races, not to mention 6 sea-quelling gods, even if the number doubled, they would probably be obliterated one by one. Besides, as sea-quelling gods, when they fought Dominators, they couldn't lure these ominous Dominators away. The ominous Dominators weren't fools. If you don't want to fight, we'll attack the city. Therefore, at this moment, the 19 sea-quelling gods were divided into 3 teams and rushed out at the same time. And in the endless ominous mist, another 3 Dominator-level ominous creatures were mobilized. Seeing this scene, the Master of Time frowned slightly. This ominous attack was indeed more ferocious than before. In the past, many god-slaying level Ominous creatures would besiege and restrain these sea-quelling gods first, before breaking through with the power of the Dominator. But this time, the ominous side simply mobilized the Dominator-level ominous, which seemed to directly restrain all the sea-quelling gods. This was not a good sign. The sea-quelling god was restrained, which meant that the other party would have a large number of god-slaying level ominous creatures free. Furthermore, this was an ominous general attack. The entire line was shrinking, and it was obvious that they wanted to eat all the strong masters of the myriad races in one bite. The two sides had been fighting for so long, so it was impossible for them not to know how many strong masters there were on the other side. Therefore, the Master of Time was not optimistic about the current situation. Not to mention whether the rear battlefield could be defended, in the blink of an eye. Only the Master of Time was left on the front-line battlefield. Millions of ancient bones appeared beside the Master of Time. At this moment, these million bones were intertwined by the law of time at the same time, because of his power alone. Although Senior Sister Shunlu kept saying that the Master of Time was not good at fighting, she was talking about a battle at the Dominator level. And in the entire Sea of Stars, there was no one stronger than the Master of Time. In dealing with a super large-scale war, below the Dominator level, one ancient beast after another roared in time, forming a barrier made of ancient creatures outside the time-sealing skylock. Sure enough, in the next moment, 18 Dominator-level ominous creatures appeared from the ominous mist. When so many Dominator-level ominous creatures appeared at the same time, the Master of Time couldn't help but look solemn. In the previous battle that heavily injured Shunlu, the other party had mobilized a total of 23 Dominator-level ominous creatures. However, this time, on the front-line battlefield alone, they had triggered a total of 27 Dominator-level ominous creatures, as well as the ominous that seemed to have surpassed the Dominator level. This strength was enough to shake his time-sealing skylock. Before the battle began, Dominator-level ominous figures appeared on both sides of the palace in the raging sea. The ominous mist hadn't arrived, but the Dominator-level ominous still appeared first. "Are you forcing me?" the Master of Time said indifferently. "Aren't you afraid that all the Dominator-level ominous creatures will die at my hands?" Immediately, among the 18 Dominator-level ominous creatures, someone said, "Killed by you? Time, if you were so strong, you wouldn't have been trapped here. Let the other two Hall Masters of the Time Temple come out. Otherwise, I'm afraid they won't have a chance later." The Master of Time snorted, but beside him, time was intertwined. Sure enough, the two Palace Masters of the Time Temple walked out from behind the time barrier. In addition to these two Palace Masters, there were also 6 sea-quelling god level powerhouses from the Time Temple. Without needing the Master of Time's instructions, the two Palace Masters of Time respectively led some sea-quelling gods to the side battlefield. They had no choice. They had to defend in all directions. It was hard to say if they could defend. The two Palace Master of the Time Temples of the Time Temple activated the Time Sky Sealing Lock at the same time. They didn't know how long they could block it. But if they couldn't resist it in the end, they could only take away a Dominator-level ominous through time predicament. At this moment, one of the Dominator-level ominous creatures said, "Time. There's no one around you who can be used now. There aren't many Dominator-level resurrected ancient creatures, and there's a time limit. Do you think you can resist us alone?" Another Dominator said ominously, "Even if you trap us, I'm afraid you won't." Be able to maintain the time-sealing sky lock. You can't defend it with the myriad God palace and such a little sky net. The Master of Time snorted. Whether we can defend it or not, it's up to me. At this moment, the two parties didn't attack immediately. The Master of Time didn't attack because he didn't know what other moves the other party would have after he attacked. Therefore, if the other party didn't take the initiative to attack, he wouldn't attack either. As for why these Dominator-level ominous creatures didn't take action, it was because they could restrain the Master of Time here. While restraining the Master of Time, infinite ominous creatures had already rushed out of the ominous mist. They were densely packed and covered all the defense lines of this palace. Furthermore, the ominous mist was also attacking, trying to break the time sealing lock. Roar. Bam. 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 At this moment, the first defense was the millions of ancient creatures resurrected by the Master of Time. These ancient creatures were at least monarchs, but there was no lack of god-slaying level and god-level powerhouses. There were even a small number of sea-quelling god-level powerhouses. The only significance of this defense line was to kill as many ominous creatures as possible and defend against the first wave of the ominous attacks. Bam. 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 Knock, knock, knock. Rumble. For a moment, outside the palace, endless combat skills and divine techniques were activated. As soon as the resurrected creatures collided with the ominous creatures, the entire star domain almost collapsed. One resurrected creature after another was annihilated, and at the same time, tens of millions of ominous creatures were annihilated. However, in the tide of ominous mist, the infinite supply of ominous power made these annihilated ominous creatures revive again. In the rear, in the huge city on the first battlefield, the Phoenix Patriarch was guarding. He roared, "Everyone, activate the first round of the purification array." For a moment, in the city, nearly 1,000,000 monarchs poured their strength into the countless arrays in the city. In the next moment, on the city wall, laser-like purification pillars instantly shot into the ominous mist. Kill. Brothers, this is only the first round of attacks. Fight hard. Immediately, the sky was filled with endless brilliance. Any ominous creature enveloped by this pillar of purification light had their vitality and ominous aura instantly annihilated. In the rear, everyone who could see this battle was watching the battle with a solemn expression. Although there were many purification pillars, they still needed to be invested with power. However, monarchs were not gods. Except for immortals and great monarchs, the power of others was limited. Even immortal-level cultivators couldn't continuously shoot out the purification pillars in an extremely short period of time. And the number of great monarchs was limited. However, only half an hour after the battle began, half of the resurrected creatures outside the time barrier had already disappeared. It was not that the Master of Time couldn't hold on anymore, but that these resurrected creatures had all been killed. Furthermore, the purification pillars bursting out of the city wall were less than half of their original number. Some people couldn't hold on anymore and were either taking the time to rest or swallowing spiritual fruits to recover. In just half an hour, billions of ominous creatures had been purified. No one knew how many ominous creatures there were, but outside the time barrier, the number of ominous creatures had never decreased, reaching tens or hundreds of billions. Boom. Suddenly, the time barrier was shaken, and a large wave of ominous mist forcibly collided, shaking the entire palace. At this moment, the Phoenix Patriarch immediately shouted, "Gods, listen up. The first will of annihilation is activated." Buzz. In the palace, nearly 1,000 gods injected the power of the divine source into the core array of the palace. Immediately, the mysterious spiritual treasure with 9 rings above the palace began to spin. More than 1,000 gods gathered on this spiritual treasure together. Immediately, the entire palace flickered with the light of purification. In the next moment, the entire palace, on the city wall, that was as wide as 30 years, surged with the light of purification at the same time. In the blink of an eye, a super-large purification wheel with a diameter of 30 light-years cut horizontally like a harvesting wheel. Bam! 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 Bang! 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 Almost in an instant, the billions of ominous creatures at the front were swept away and annihilated under the huge wheel of purification. The ominous mist that was like a huge tide was instantly purified, revealing the originally shattered void. The Phoenix Patriarch couldn't help but spit. How can the strongest battlefield of the myriad races really have an undeserved reputation? I'd like to see if this ominous is really endless. The wheel of annihilation, with a diameter of 30 light-years, swept away all the ominous creatures, wherever it passed. Such a large-scale destructive weapon was rarely used. Even the ominous didn't know that the myriad god palace could unleash such power. In the blink of an eye, on the frontal battlefield, the ominous aura within a few light-years was swept away. Even so, the wheel of annihilation hadn't completely appeared. At this moment, the expressions of the 18 Dominator-level ominous creatures all changed. The 18 of them attacked at the same time, trying to shake the wheel of annihilation. However, how could the Master of Time let them? When the Phoenix Patriarch used the 9-turn heavenly wheel, the tide of time surged ceaselessly. In the end, he took action and sent these 18 people into a time predicament with unparalleled power. The ominous creature suspected to be above the Dominator level who was fighting Senior Sister Shenlu was furious when he saw this. He had never seen the myriad races use such a method, nor had he used it in history. Such a large-scale attack shouldn't even be a power that a supreme nature treasure could unleash. Humph. Haven't you always wanted to know my real strength? As you wish. The ominous creature above the Dominator level suddenly took out a black bottle. As the bottle was opened, a dark red powder was sucked into his body. At that moment, Senior Sister Shenlu didn't choose to stop him, because she instinctively felt that the dark red powder seemed to be extremely terrifying. Buzz. After the ominous creature swallowed the dark red powder, the entire star river trembled slightly, and the Dominator-level ominous immediately soared in strength. He didn't attack Senior Sister Shenlu immediately, but slapped at the wheel of annihilation. But how could Senior Sister Shenlu allow it? She immediately unleashed all her strength to block it and also slapped out. However, in an instant, Senior Sister Shenli's entire palm shattered, and her blood turned into a boundless red mist as she was instantly sent flying. With a thought, Senior Sister Shenlu used the momentum of being pushed back to block tens of thousands of light years in front of the myriad god palace in the blink of an eye. At the same time, she turned into her original body. With a clear cry, the blood-colored palm that had just been shattered turned into a blood-colored knife light and immediately slashed at the ominous. However, the other party actually held the blood-colored knife light with one hand. With a loud rumbling sound, the blood-colored knife light was covered in darkness. However, the difficult power of the Tao of Slaughter God also shattered one of the other party's arms on the spot. Senior Sister Shenli's palm quickly recovered, so did the other party's shattered arm. Senior Sister Shenli snorted coldly. You can control more than 40 pieces of Star Rivers, but I can still shake it. Your total Star Rivers should be between 42 and 45 pieces. The basic quantity above the Dominator level is 50 pieces of Star Rivers. Therefore, you are just a very powerful Dominator level. Ominous, not beyond the Dominator level at all. Humph. Even if I haven't reached that level, it's enough to deal with you. In this sea of stars, only Void can compete with me. You are not qualified. Although this Dominator level Ominous was powerful, Senior Sister Shenli was finally relieved. She and the Master of Time guessed that this Dominator level Ominous just wanted to slowly consume the strong masters of the myriad races. Therefore, it hadn't revealed its real strength. And because the other party could fight two alone, under the siege of her and the Master of Time, it wasn't at a disadvantage. Therefore, they suspected that the other party was above the Dominator level. However, from the looks of it, the other party hadn't surpassed the Dominator level in the end. Not surpassing the Dominator level was great news in itself. This meant that the other party was not invincible or invincible. If eldest senior brother were here, the other party would definitely not dare to act rashly. Senior Sister Shenli transmitted this information to the Master of Time with a thought. The latter couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. However, he only relaxed for a short while. Although the other party wasn't above the Dominator level, his terrifying combat power of above 42 pieces of Star Rivers couldn't be described as an ordinary Dominator at all. Bam! 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 Boom, boom, boom. This Dominator level Ominous was fighting Senior Sister Shenli. Senior Sister Shenli had clearly used some ultimate secret technique. Even so, she was still no match for her in terms of combat effect. If it weren't for the Tao of Slaughter God that she created, she might not have been able to last until now, before being defeated by the other party. The Dominator level Ominous found that Senior Sister Shenli was determined to hold him off, and half of the Wheel of Annihilation had rushed out of the palace wall. As many as 10 billion ominous creatures of various sizes were killed by this sudden appearing Wheel of Annihilation. This was why this Dominator level Ominous was angry. The Ominous was naturally not afraid of sacrifice. However, being not afraid of sacrifice didn't mean that they had to sacrifice in vain. The effect of the Wheel of Annihilation was too powerful. The first charge of the ominous creatures was defeated just like that. The Dominator level Ominous immediately snorted. I didn't want to use all my strength. I know that there are some strange phenomena near the sea realm. You might still have some combat power hidden. But I'd like to see if you have any reinforcements that can block the charge horn of our army. Hiss. In the next moment, 7 Dominator level ominous creatures appeared in the ominous wave again. If there were only so many Dominator level ominous creatures left, Senior Sister Shenli might not be too worried. However, at the same time, on the rear battlefield and the side battlefield, Dominator level ominous creatures appeared one after another, and the ominous mist also appeared one after another. A tide of ominous creatures began to attack the 4 barriers of the Myriad God Palace and the Skynet at the same time. On the frontal battlefield, the most terrifying thing was that in addition to the 7 ominous dominators, hundreds of thousands of god-slaying level ominous creatures had appeared. What did 100,000 god-slaying level powerhouses mean? In the past, several god-slaying level powerhouses were enough to tie down an ominous battlefield. Even if they moved out of the battlefield, there were definitely no more than 10,000 god-slaying level powerhouses on the surface. And now, 100,000 god-slaying level powerhouses had appeared at once. It could be seen that the ominous determination this time was clearly determined to destroy the myriad races. The appearance of these ominous powerhouses pushed the ominous mist to attack the Wheel of Annihilation. The Dominator rank, who was fighting senior sister Shenlue, grinned ferociously. This Wheel of Purification is indeed extraordinary, but the power of purification is limited. With your few people, I don't believe you can use such power many times. Puff. 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 Sizzle. The ominous army seemed to be prepared to die. They also knew that the city was difficult to attack, but as long as they survived the extreme outburst of the strong masters of the myriad races, victory would definitely belong to them. When the entire Wheel of Annihilation appeared, it still wanted to move forward, only to fail to move forward anymore. Layers of ominous waves kept coming. After only a moment, the Wheel of Annihilation began to dim. When the Wheel of Annihilation completely dimmed and disappeared, only more than 3,000 god-slaying level ominous creatures were sacrificed. Under normal circumstances, such an outcome would probably make the strong masters of the myriad races excited for a long time. But this was not normal time. This was an ultimate battle that concerned the survival of the myriad races. However, the sweeping of the area of nearly 30 light-years did relieve some pressure on the front-line battlefield. However, the Phoenix Patriarch, who was guarding the myriad god palace, couldn't be happy at all. This was because except for the frontal battlefield, the other 3 battlefields had begun to discover a charge of the ominous. Especially on the rear battlefield, 5th Senior Brother and the others were no longer in the mood to watch the front-line battle, because an ominous army of tens of billions was surging over like a tide. There were also as many as 8 Dominator-level ominous creatures here. Senior Brother Azure Dragon took the lead to attack. I can kill one within an hour. I hope this time Sky Sealing Lock can withstand it. Roar. A Dominator-level ominous took the initiative to pounce on the huge body of Senior Brother Azure Dragon. The 2 parties instantly fought into the endless void. Senior Brother Azure Dragon cultivated in the Time Temple with the Million God Blood Bead. Because the battle was imminent, although he hadn't broken through to the Dominator realm, he chose to forcibly fuse with the Million God Blood Bead, but he could barely reach the Dominator level in thousands of years. Although he wasn't a powerful Dominator, he could at least make it in time for this battle. At this moment, he had to take action immediately. He had to rush back to restrain the second Dominator-level ominous. However, even if Senior Brother Azure Dragon took one away, there were still 7 Dominator-level ominous creatures on the opposite side. Senior Brother 6 God side. There are too many Dominator-level ominous creatures. However, 5th Senior Brother shook his head slightly. No, it's still not the most yet. In the battle in the Primordial Era, why do you think the strong masters of the Primordial Era were defeated? Because more than 1,000 Dominator-level ominous creatures appeared one after another. Hiss. Fifth senior brother originally didn't want to tell this to others, but at this moment, he had to remind them that what was in front of them was not yet the full strength of the ominous army. Lei Heng was lost for words. If thousands of ominous creatures come at us at the same time, how can the myriad god palace resist them? I'm afraid we won't even be able to withstand a round of impact, right? Fifth senior brother said, I'm talking about the appearance of more than 1,000 Dominator-level ominous creatures one after another. There are certain conditions for the appearance of Dominator-level ominous creatures. Although I don't know what these conditions are, they should be related to the ominous mist. In the primordial era, nearly 80 Dominator-level ominous creatures appeared. At present, on the 4 battlefields, there are a total of 48 Dominator-level ominous creatures, but this shouldn't be their full strength. These are just stimulated by the 9-turn heavenly wheel. They know that we can't use the 9-turn heavenly wheel all the time. The other party wants to consume the power of the 9-turn heavenly wheel. Senior brother Lei Heng said, whatever, Bug, the two of us can hold back one of them, right? Senior brother Six God frowned. Yes, but we can't kill them. Once we restrain one of them, we won't be able to participate in the battlefield here. You can attack, but I can't. The insect army has to be under my control to exert its strongest combat power. At this moment, behind everyone, many places on the creation worm nest were bulging, and around the creation worm nest, 12 god-slaying level giant worms had already appeared. And around the insect nest, there were nearly 100 black holes. As long as senior brother Six God was willing, a massive number of insects would surge out of the black holes. Lei Heng was lost for words. The other insects of your insect race are so weak. How many slaps can they take? Senior brother Six God said, the purification worms are meant to charge. Although they can't kill the doomsday level ominous, they should be able to purify hundreds of millions of them below the doomsday level. Senior sister Dark Shadow said, Lei Heng, let's attack together and kill one of the Dominator level ominous. You are born to be able to restrain the ominous, and with my physique, I can barely fight the Dominator level ominous. It's not impossible for us to kill one. Lei Heng said, but there'll still be 6 Dominators. Fifth senior brother, I can kill one. Old Fear said coldly, count me in. At this moment, with a swish, the distanceless gate appeared again. There was no telling which distanceless gate this was. In the next moment, Han Guanchu and Jiang Linxian appeared. Seeing these two people, fifth senior brother couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. You came at the right time. Han Guanchu smiled. We kill 4. Han Guanchu and Jiang Linxian greeted fifth senior brother and the others before stepping out of the time barrier. Sure enough, at first, the other party's Dominator level ominous wanted to test it, but it was pierced by Jiang Linxian's jade-like hands. Immediately, 4 of the Dominator level ominous rushed out and fought old Han and Jiang Linxian into the endless void. Fifth senior brother heaved a sigh of relief. In that case, Lei Heng, you stay behind. Your power of lightning restrains the ominous and can't deal with the Dominator level ominous, but those below the Dominator level are definitely no match for you. It's more meaningful for you to stay behind. Dark Shadow, Cheongqi, come with me. If only one of the ominous Dominators comes, we can kill him in an hour. If 2 come, just try our best. Linka, guard the rear with Old Dragon God. Okay. They all stepped out of the time barrier. As fifth senior brother expected. The other party saw that they were only sea-quelling gods, so they only sent one dominator level ominous. Seeing this, fifth senior brother said via voice transmission, Lei Heng, 6. God, the other party is too decisive in mobilizing the dominator level. Ominous. They don't intend to consume us with the god-slaying level ominous at all. Therefore, there are definitely more dominators than these. The two of you, be prepared to fight dominators, casually. With that, fifth senior brother and the others also fought into the endless void with the dominator level ominous. Seeing this scene, the remaining two dominator level ominous only revealed a contemptuous smile. They didn't attack immediately. Instead, with the arrival of the ominous tide, tens of thousands of god-slaying level ominous creatures, as well as doomsday level ominous creatures and below, began to charge. Half an hour later, if the battlefield in the rear was still manageable, it was mainly because the two dominator level ominous didn't take action. Countless fearless self-destructing army of insects, Lei Heng's lightning domain, and the time sky sealing lock and the resurrected army of the palace. Masters of the time temple barely managed to resist the enemy. However, they weren't in good shape. They had resisted the enemy, but they had taken too much. It was only a matter of time before the time sky sealing lock collapsed. However, it was even more difficult on the side battlefield. These two sides were only guarded by the master of the time temple and two sea-quelling gods of the time temple. Faced with the ominous tide and the attacks of the other party's dominators, the resurrected army had all been eliminated, and the time sky sealing lock was also full of cracks and in danger. On the frontal battlefield, they fell into a bitter battle again. In the myriad god palace, the Phoenix Patriarch's expression was ugly. He immediately shouted, "The second wheel of annihilation, open. The third wheel of annihilation, open. The fourth wheel of annihilation, open." At that moment, even the Phoenix Patriarch had already gone into battle, continuously sending his power into the 9-turn heavenly wheel. The 3 consecutive explosions of the wheels of annihilation almost drained the power of thousands of gods at once. Even if they were gods, the power of their divine sources was not infinite. Although the power of their divine sources could grow on their own, their recovery speed was not so fast after all, and they couldn't directly absorb it from the void. Therefore, when the fourth wheel of annihilation was launched, all the gods took out their energy crystals and sat cross-legged to recover. On all the battlefields in 4 directions, the battle was fierce. 2 hours later, on the battlefield in the rear, half of Senior Brother Azure Dragon's body cracked and he returned seriously injured. He shouted, again. After another half an hour, 5th Senior Brother and the others returned, but Old Fierce's divine body had collapsed and he no longer had the power to fight. And following them back was a dominator-level ominous. Lei Heng and the others immediately went up to them. What happened? 5th Senior Brother said, "We were ambushed. The other party had a dominator secretly ambushing us." Xiongqi activated his origin divine image and narrowly killed one. It seems that we have to fight head-on. Another 2 hours passed. Rumble. Rumble. Knock, knock, knock. Suddenly, a strange phenomenon appeared. 3 consecutive heavenly Dao cracks appeared, a rain of blood poured down, and the death knell wailed. This was a sign of the death of a powerhouse of the myriad races. Changes suddenly happened on the front-line battlefield. 3 of the 19 sea-quelling gods who held back the Dominator level ominous died in a row. In the next moment, the void opened, and 2 groups of sea-quelling god-level powerhouses quickly returned. However, the team of the 7 sea-quelling gods didn't return. The Master of Time immediately sent a time tide into the endless void. Rumble. Knock, knock, knock. The sky rumbled. However, even so, they were still a step slower. 3 sea-quelling gods returned with their remnant bodies, and at the same time another person died. On the spot. Another 7 Dominator-level ominous creatures followed out of the endless void at the same time. Yes, the ominous was not stupid. They knew that the number of strong masters of the myriad races was limited, and the people of the 3 temples had many trump cards. It was not easy to kill a Dominator. Therefore, their target was the sea-quelling gods, not from the 3 temples. During the fierce battle, they quickly mobilized 6 ominous Dominators and secretly attacked. Senior Sister Shunlu had no time to spare. The Master of Time suppressed the ominous while maintaining the time-sealing skylock. Although he still had a chance, he had only saved 3. It was definitely terrible news that 4 sea-quelling gods had died in a row. Besides, how could these returning sea-quelling gods dare to attack rashly? This was because they weren't sure if there were any Dominator-level ominous lurking in the dark to ambush them. But if they didn't take action, with the 6 new Dominator-level ominous creatures and the 3 ones they were fighting, on the front line battlefield, in addition to the 18 Dominator-level ominous creatures suppressed by the Master of Time, there were 9 more Dominator-level ominous creatures. In addition to the existing 7 Dominator-level ominous creatures, the other party's Dominator-level ominous creatures suddenly increased to 16. The Master of Time was indeed very powerful. Just suppressing 18 Dominator-level ominous creatures was enough to prove his strength, not to mention that he had to maintain the time sky sealing lock. Only 54 Dominator-level ominous? The Master of Time's expression turned ugly. He shouted, "The returned sea-quelling gods, guard the side battlefield." When there were as many as 16 Dominator-level ominous creatures on the front line battlefield, the Master of Time knew that the time-sealing sky lock couldn't hold on anymore. Sure enough, these 16 ominous Dominators worked together to push the endless ominous tide to attack repeatedly. After only 100 seconds, cracks appeared on the time-sealing sky lock with a crack. Ka ka ka. The ominous aura was rapidly consumed, but the ominous didn't care. Less than half an hour later, although time chains kept surging out of the time river, there were too many Dominator-level ominous people on the other side. Master of Time, you can't defend it. You couldn't defend it before, and now you can't either. Humph. The Master of Time snorted. It's none of your business. As long as you're not afraid of death, just come. Buzz. In the next moment, 9 Masters of Time walked out of the time river one after another. One of them appeared directly under the 9-turn heavenly wheel. As the Master of Time injected Star River source power, the entire myriad god palace was extremely dazzling. At that moment, on the palace walls, all the arrays were activated. In an instant, 4 wheels of annihilation rushed out of the frontal battlefield. At the same time, the 8 time tides turned into billions of time blades and attacked together with the 4 wheels of annihilation. The ominous side was not surprised by the outburst of the Master of Time. Of course, they knew how powerful the Master of Time was. Otherwise, they wouldn't have paid the price of 18 people to force time to take the initiative. To use time predicament. Now, the Master of Time had to maintain the time predicament, maintain the time-sealing sky lock, and at the same time activate the time-splitting technique. Even as a master of the three temples, he had reached his limit. Accompanied by the ominous roar of the Dominator, the 100,000 god-slaying level powerhouses retreated quickly. However, the Master of Time shouted, "Can you retreat?" With a thought, an old body of the Master of Time appeared in the ominous mist. A time-sealing sky lock cut through the ominous mist, blocking the ominous creatures that were about to retreat. His remaining old bodies erupted at the same time and charged into the battle. At the same time, the Master of Time shouted, "All battlefields, open the gates and let the ominous creatures in. Everyone from the Skynet, prepare to fight." The voice of the Master of Time spread out, and the side battlefield responded. First, the time sky sealing locks that were almost broken began to crack. In the end, such a huge battlefield couldn't just rely on these powerhouses alone. At this moment, the ominous attacks were too fierce. Even if they tried their best, they wouldn't be able to withstand it. They might as well let some ominous creatures in to relieve the pressure on the battlefields in 4 directions. Of course, those who were let in could only reach the Doomsday level at most. Anyone above the Doomsday level would definitely be targeted if they dared to enter. In the blink of an eye, tens of millions of ominous creatures poured in from the hole. Almost every second, on average, millions of ominous creatures rushed into the Skynet. However, in the Skynet, there were only 10 million strong masters of the myriad races. Although they used the purification stars, their capacity was limited. Almost in the blink of an eye, there was a fierce battle in the Skynet. Brothers, kill everyone, unleash your full strength. No matter what trump cards you have, use them. For a moment, countless purifying lights erupted in the Skynet. These purifying lights were mostly from top-notch purification beads refined from energy crystals, also known as purification thunder. The battle slowed down. On the frontal battlefield, within hundreds of light years, the time blades were densely packed. With the outburst of the Master of Time, in less than 100 seconds, more than 10,000 god-slaying level ominous creatures had died. However, after only 100 seconds, 2 of the wheels of annihilation had been destroyed. Water could extinguish fire, but if there were too many flames, they couldn't be distinguished. However, among the 16 Dominator-level ominous creatures, except for 8 that temporarily blocked the Master of Time, the other 8 all went to fight an old body of the Master of Time at the same time. One of the Dominator-level ominous creatures shouted, "It's not like the time splitting technique, can't be broken. If one of your old bodies is injured, all your old bodies are injured. Time, you can't resist us anyways." The 8 Dominator-level ominous creatures surrounded one of the old bodies of the Master of Time and sacrificed themselves at the same time, turning it into an ominous ball that forcibly sealed the old body of the Master of Time. Bang! 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 The ominous balls kept emitting terrifying power. Finally, in just 3 seconds, it exploded. Rumble. Puff. 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 Bang. 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 All the old bodies of the Master of Time vomited blood at the same time, and hundreds of places on his body were blown through. Almost at the same time, all the old bodies of the Master of Time dissipated. And in the void, fluctuations also appeared. It was the 18 Dominator level. ominous creatures suppressed by the Master of Time in the time predicament. They seized the opportunity and rioted collectively. Indestructible time. The Master of Time's body recovered in the blink of an eye, but only he knew that his origin had been seriously injured, and his combat power had dropped by 30% on the spot. However, he also knew that he couldn't let these 18 Dominator-level ominous creatures come out. Immediately, he looked at Shenlu and roared, "Do you know why I'm called the Master of Time and no one else?" Because, the seventh divine technique of the Time Temple, time shattering. Behind the Master of Time, the time river that bloomed suddenly exploded in the sky, annihilating part of his old time in the time river. Bang! 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 The 18 Dominator-level ominous creatures that were about to rush out of the time predicament all fell silent as time shattered. Alas! Shenlu sighed in her heart. This time, time permanently lost almost 20% of his combat power in exchange for the death of 18 Dominator-level ominous creatures. And it might take tens of millions of years to cultivate back this 20% of his strength, which was a heavy price. Since then, there were only 8 Dominator-level ominous creatures left on the main battlefield. When the Wheel of Annihilation was completely drowned by the ominous, there were only 60,000 of the 100,000 god-slaying level ominous creatures left. At this moment, the Master of Time was emitting dazzling divine brilliance. His golden robe rippled, and he looked dignified as he looked down at the main battlefield. He didn't seem to be injured at all. As expected of Master of the Three Temples. You're indeed extraordinary. One of the 8 Dominator-level ominous creatures let out a demonic laugh. As long as you can destroy all races, today's sacrifice is worth it. Master of Time, you don't have to hide anymore. You have definitely been injured. I wonder how many of us you can fight now that your strength has plummeted. Bang! 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 The ominous mist cut off by the Master of Time finally opened again. And from the ominous mist on the front battlefield, another 10 Dominator-level ominous creatures walked out. The Master of Time sneered. Don't forget, 26 of you died just now. Do you think another 10 can break through my defense? The Dominator giggled. Even if you can block us, what about the other battlefields? The strong masters of your time temple can be immortal, but others will die in the end. On the first battlefield, the Master of Time and the 18 Dominator-level ominous creatures were in a stalemate. The other party wanted to test him, but this time, they didn't dare to take the initiative to enter the time predicament of the Master of Time. After all, they all agreed that even if the Master of Time was injured, he still had the strength to destroy them again. However, only the Master of Time knew that he had been seriously injured and had lost 30% of his combat power. Then, he had forcibly annihilated a part of his time river. Although he had destroyed the 18 ominous dominators in the time predicament, his combat power had been reduced by 20%. Overall, he only had 50% of his combat power now. Although with 50% of his combat power, he was still very strong. If these 18 Dominator-level ominous creatures really fought to the death, coupled with the 60,000 god-slaying level ominous creatures, the defense of the frontal battlefield would definitely collapse. Therefore, most of his current strength was fake. He even knew that Shenli's state was no better than his. It was already very rare for Shenlu to hold off a super Dominator-level ominous that could control more than 42 pieces of Star River source power alone. However, this situation wouldn't last long. Therefore, both senior sister Shin, Lu, and the Master of Time were waiting. They didn't believe that there were only so many Dominator-level ominous creatures in this ultimate battle. As the third counterattack of the ominous, their current attack seemed to be lacking. While strengthening the time sky ceiling lock, the Master of Time said to Shin Lu via voice transmission, "If this continues, the consequences will be very serious. They clearly still have Dominator-level ominous creatures that haven't come out. Otherwise, the side battlefield won't be able to withstand them at all." Shin Lu replied, "They must be deliberately baiting us to force the Death God to take action. Once the Death God comes, this place will be besieged, and a war will definitely break out in the Sea Realm. When the time comes, if we go back, the first battlefield will collapse. If we don't go back, the Sea Realm is very likely to be taken. Without the Death God guarding it, the immortal temple can't resist such an attack. Hold on for another 3 days. If the ominous still maintains its current combat power in 3 days, I will call little junior brother over." 3 days later, in the Skynet, there was a fierce battle. All the strong masters above the God realm and the myriad God Palace supported the side battlefield. Xia Xiaochan, Zhang Xuanyu, Lu Renquang, and the others were all fighting a bloody battle. At this moment, they could only be ordinary members of the battlefield. In the Skynet, where Luo Xiaobai was, demon plants were densely packed in the void. Han Song, who was next to Luo Xiaobai, had already created tens of thousands of loose clones. In fact, with Han Song's strength, with the accumulation of a massive amount of energy crystals, he was already qualified to become a god. However, he also knew clearly that even if he could make a breakthrough, he would at most be at the god-slaying level. It was not worth mentioning in a war where even dominators could die at any time. Therefore, it was impossible for Han Song to choose this opportunity to make a breakthrough. Bam! 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 As Han Fei's daughter, Han Chani was talented, with sufficient resources and more than 2,000 years of battle tempering, she had already broken through the monarch tribulation, and her strength had reached the carefree level. At this moment, she was at the peak of the carefree level, passing through the sea of demon plants created by Luo Xiaobai and Han Song. She had perfectly inherited Xia Xiaochan's perception of space. Like a shadow, she hid in a sea of demon plants. A destruction-level ominous creature was brainlessly attacking the sea of demon plants, trying to annihilate the demon plants here. Swish! Suddenly, Han Chani appeared behind him, and a dazzling knife light instantly shattered the destruction-level ominous. When the destruction-level ominous body exploded, Han Chani casually threw down a purification thunder and disappeared into the sea of demon plants in the next second. This was because she already had her next target. Bang! This destruction-level ominous creature was killed on the spot under this sneak attack. Han Chani, on the other hand, dove into the sea of demon plants without looking back, muttering, "The 9,996th. Only 4 more to kill 10,000 people." Han Chani was not talking about the number of enemies she had killed in the past 3 days, but the accumulated number of enemies she had killed since she came to the first battlefield. In the past 3 days, she had completed 203 solo kills. This number of enemies was enough to compete with an immortal-level powerhouse. Rumble! Rumble! In the sky, the heavenly Dao crack appeared again. This was the umpteenth heavenly Tao crack in the past 3 days, because every second, a heavenly Tao lightning crack would appear. Han Chani was already used to it. In the past 3 days, they had even changed to more than a dozen purification stars. This was because under the crazy baptism of the army, countless purification stars were collapsing every day. Woo-woo. Woo-woo. Suddenly, the horn of the myriad gods' palace sounded again. In the next moment, the Phoenix Patriarch's voice spread throughout the entire Skynet. Everyone, abandon the Skynet immediately and approach the myriad god palace. What? Give up the Skynet? What happened? Why did they give up the Skynet? Are they crazy? How can we resist the ominous if we give up the Skynet? In the next moment, the Phoenix Patriarch shouted again, the ominous has launched the second wave of attacks. Everyone, abandon the Skynet immediately and go to the myriad god palace. Han Song immediately shouted, come back. Han Chani was annoyed. Only 4 left. Luo Xiaobai also shouted, listen up. War is not a place to show off. Retreat with us immediately. Okay. Han Chani had to give up her next target. In a few flashes, she landed on the purification star where Luo Xiaobai was. In the next moment, Han Song's clone had also arrived. Taking Zhang Panpan and Wan Xiaoxiao, they immediately retreated in the direction of the myriad god palace. Han Chani said, what happened? Why did you suddenly give up Skynet? If it weren't for Skynet, wouldn't there only be the lonely myriad god palace left? Han Song said solemnly, the 2 side battlefields have collapsed. Huh? How is that possible? Isn't it said that there are many sea-quelling gods guarding them? Luo Xiaobai said, their combat power has a limit. Although the sea-quelling gods are strong, they can't withstand the endless ominous army. However, Luo Xiaobai looked at Han Song and said, however, the side battlefields collapsed too suddenly. Did you see what happened there? Han Song said, I don't know. The purification stars, my loose clones, parasitized, were instantly annihilated. A battle of the top powerhouses might have broken out over there. Han Chani hurriedly said, where is my mother? Then let her come back. Han Fei said, I've already asked them. They're also retreating in our direction. Han Chani was immediately relieved. That's good. Luo Xiaobai, on the other hand, clearly felt that something was wrong. The God Slayers are the top combat power of the myriad races. You mean even they are retreating? Han Fei nodded solemnly. He also knew that this meant that the battle on the side battlefields had exceeded the limit of what the sea-quelling gods could resist. A moment ago, the battlefields in 4 directions were still barely resisting. Although the ominous attacks were ferocious, it wasn't to the point where they couldn't breathe. In the past 3 days, as many as 400,000 strong masters of the myriad races had died, although they had the advantage of purification stars and purification thunders. Without these barriers, the casualties would be immeasurable. Originally, if the battle continued, Senior Sister Shenlu and the Master of Time would eventually compromise and put down their plans. However, just a moment ago, the ominous added fuel to the fire. On both sides of the battlefield, 5 Dominator-level ominous creatures, as well as 5,000 God-slaying level and 30,000 Doomsday-level ominous creatures appeared at the same time. Although there weren't many Dominator-level ominous creatures added, this sudden increase completely exceeded the limits of the strong masters on the Side battlefields. As the Master of Time and Senior Sister Shenlu expected, as long as the ominous was willing, it could easily break the defense of the side battlefields. However, judging from the number of God-slaying level and Doomsday level powerhouses, the Time Master and Senior Sister Shenlu realized at the same time that the other party was very careful. Obviously, after the first round of attacks of the ominous army was disintegrated by the Time Master, it was peaceful for 3 days, and their wolfish ambition was revealed. Yes, they also hoped to crush the Skynet and bring tremendous pressure to the first battlefield to force the arrival of the Death God. For this reason, the combat power they provided was exactly the limit of the Skynet. At this moment, on the side battlefields, there were 7 Dominator-level ominous creatures each. Even if the Wheel of Annihilation was activated, it would probably be blocked by the 7 Dominator-level ominous creatures and the 5,000 God-slaying level ominous creatures. And this was not what the Master of Time and Senior Sister Shenlu wanted at all. What they wanted was a large number of Dominator-level ominous creatures attacking at the same time. But now, the other party had only sent 10 Dominator-level ominous creatures over. For the ominous, this was enough. If Senior Sister Shenlu and the others still didn't summon the Death God, with their current strength, once the ominous army broke through the side battlefield, the strong masters of the myriad races on the first battlefield would definitely suffer huge casualties. The ominous wasn't afraid of being ambushed. They were just testing the bottom line of the Master of Time and Senior Sister Shenlu. This was because once the Death God really came, nearly half of the Dominator-level ominous that appeared here might die. They knew how precious the Dominator-level ominous was and didn't want to waste it casually. After realizing this, the Master of Time immediately said via voice transmission, Shenlu, that's enough. It's time to reel in the net, or it will be too late. At this moment, Senior Sister Shenlu, who was bathed in blood, roared angrily. She suddenly opened her mouth and spat out a void. The ominous dominators immediately retreated when they saw the void power. The void power of the Master of the Void was quite powerful, definitely much stronger than the Wheel of Annihilation. Even he couldn't block it, but there was no need to rely on his own strength to block it. Otherwise, if he took this blow head-on, he might be seriously injured. As if knowing that the person on the opposite side would temporarily retreat, Senior Sister Shenlu turned into a scarlet divine bird with a swish. Senior Sister Shenli's voice echoed in the void. 3,000 extreme suns, guarding my 4 directions. Bloodstained chaos, the radiance of primordial gods. Heavenly secrets arrayed, the celestial power ever-changing. In my name, I decree boundless command. Buzz. Senior Sister Shenli's sudden outburst made the ominous dominators' expression change. Although he didn't know what Shenlu was doing, he knew that something bad must have happened. Swish. 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 At that moment, around the first battlefield, in a total of 28 star rivers, dazzling divine light burst out like a blood-colored divine bird. A total of 3,000 dazzling nebulas suddenly appeared in these 28 star rivers. Bang! 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 The ominous dominator's expression changed drastically. The light of the Great Tao condensed from the 3,000 Great Taos? Roar! The Dominator-level ominous seemed to have guessed something and immediately tried to leave the area surrounded by the 28 star rivers. However, he couldn't rush out of these 28 star rivers at all. So, you want to use your last breakthrough to resist our ominous army. However, can you afford 3,000 different daos? Tweet. Senior Sister Shenli's divine voice resounded, don't you know that I took over after Void left? At that moment, on the battlefield in the rear, Senior Brother Azure Dragon, 5th Senior Brother, Lei Heng, 6th God, and the others all looked back in the direction of Senior Sister Shenlu. Senior Brother Azure Dragon said, I didn't expect her to really do it. 5th Senior Brother couldn't help but sigh. Disturb the heavenly secrets. Steal the 3,000 heavenly daos, and order the heavens and earth. I wonder how strong she will be if this technique succeeds. The Dominator-level Ominous was furious. He roared, Shenlu, how dare you make a breakthrough in front of me? How can I let you get what you want? Buzz. The Dominator-level Ominous immediately activated the boundless Ominous Mist to attack the void released by Shenlu. And he charged at Shenlu. Bang! However, this full-strength attack of a Dominator was actually blocked by Senior Sister Shenlu with a palm. As Senior Sister Shenlu grabbed out, the latter's ominous body was almost severed. Shenlu sneered and said, I didn't want to take this risk, but you wish. You want both the first battlefield and the sea realm. Little junior brother. Senior Sister Shenli's strength soared, but the first thing she did was not to rush to kill the other party, but to suddenly summon Han Fei. In the past few days, Han Fei didn't dare to cultivate again. Senior Sister Shenlu was obviously planning something, and it concerned the survival of the first battlefield. He couldn't be negligent. However, after waiting for 3 days, there was still no news. At this moment, Han Fei was chatting with the Distanceless Gate. Han Fei said, Old Distanceless. As the Distanceless Gate, why don't you know what happened on the first battlefield at all? The Distanceless Gate, I didn't go there. How would I know? Han Fei said, but you have many brothers and sisters. I don't believe you. Don't have telepathy with the other 8 Distanceless Gates. The Distanceless Gate, no. Besides, we are not brothers and sisters. We are just doors. Han Fei shook his head slightly. As a door, how boring is your life? The Distanceless Gate, it's fun to watch the ominous destruction. Han Fei shrugged. That's quite difficult. By the way, who created you? The Distanceless Gate, my father is not famous, but I know that he is the greatest person in the history of the chaotic world. His name is Distanceless. I thought your name meant to cross the sea of stars, but it turns out that your father's name is Distanceless. The Distanceless Gate, it's the same. Father changed his name to Distanceless because he wanted to create a door with no distance. I don't know his original name. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. I really don't understand. How keen is his grasp of space to create the 9 of you? At this moment, Shiman Linglan was sitting on the side, watching the two of them talk. She rested her elbows on her knees, supported her chin with her hand, and had a faint smile on her face. Han Fei looked back. The drool is flowing out. Shiman Linglan snorted. It's too late for you to complain now. Han Fei was grinning when suddenly, the mark between his eyebrows flashed. Swish. Han Fei immediately stopped smiling and his face changed. Linglan, let's go. At that moment, Shiman Linglan's heart skipped a beat. Since they were reunited, she felt that time had passed very quickly. This first battlefield must be full of dangers at this moment. In her heart, she didn't want Han Fei to face such a dangerous battle. But she knew that Han Fei had to go. After all, he didn't belong to her alone. Swish. The distanceless gates suddenly appeared in the myriad god palace. The moment Han Fei came out of the door, before he had the time to look at this battlefield, senior sister Shunlu said via voice transmission, little junior brother, cover an area as large as you can with the law of life. Time is seriously injured. Please solve the battle in the Skynet. It's best if you can. Kill a few dominators and help time recover. Wei Shunlu and the Master of Time both felt that Han Fei's arrival could change the current situation was not because of Han Fei's combat power, nor was it because of the demon purification pot, but because of Han Fei's law of life. The law of life was one of the strongest nemesis of the ominous. The long-term existence of the ominous relied mostly on the ominous mist. But that was because even if they died in battle, the ominous mist could recast them, so their river of life wasn't broken. However, once the river of life was stripped from these ominous creatures or cut off, it meant that it only needed one time to kill these ominous creatures. In particular, Han Fei was now a supreme-level powerhouse. As soon as he advanced, he was already a top powerhouse. Even if he was a dominator level ominous creature, under Han Fei's law of life, the ominous creature's river of life would still be stripped away. Therefore, Han Fei's appearance meant a lot. Originally, senior sister Shunlu wanted to use the strong masters of the myriad races on the first battlefield and herself as bait to attract as many dominator-level ominous creatures as possible. At the same time, she would unleash the power of her entire life to kill these ominous creatures. Eldest senior brother had been waiting for Shunlu. He had long known that Shunlu was the best person to replace him. However, the ominous well-planned probing made it impossible for Shunlu to continue the stalemate with them. She had no choice but to use her final trump card in advance. Hearing this, Han Fei didn't dare to be negligent. The law of life immediately covered 12 star rivers. Yes, Han Fei stayed in the source of chaos too short. He only had time to increase his basic combat power to 12 star rivers. However, when Han Fei activated the law of life, he discovered that the place enveloped by this huge ominous mist exceeded 12 star rivers. Immediately, between Han Fei's eyebrows, the invincible eye opened. Instantly, the coverage of the law of life reached an astonishing 24 star rivers. When Han Fei's river of life covered all the star rivers, he saw the current situation. 48 dominator-level ominous creatures? 80,000 god-slaying level ominous creatures? More than 100 billion ominous creatures on the battlefields in 4 directions? The ominous mist beyond his perception range? Also, in the surrounding dozens of star rivers, there were endless star remains floating. Almost none of these star rivers were intact. From the looks of it, how many battlefields had he experienced to make these star rivers like this? This was what Han Fei saw the moment he appeared here. Then, Han Song's memories were synchronized with his. Han Fei immediately looked at the countless monarchs who were shuttling between the purifying stars and retreating to the myriad god palace from the Skynet. Among them, Han Song, Luo Xiaobai, was quickly retreating with Han Chani, and the others. Xia Xiaochan, Zhang Xuanyu, Lu Renquang, and the others were fighting and retreating, mostly injured. On the rear battlefield, his parents, senior brother Azure Dragon, 5th senior brother, and the others were fighting fiercely, forcibly resisting the Pressure of the rear battlefield and protecting the retreat of the strong. Masters of the myriad races in the Skynet. Rumble. Knock, knock, knock. The heavenly Tao cracked and the mournful death knells kept ringing. This meant that many people died every second, because the ominous deaths wouldn't produce these weather phenomena. Has it reached this point? Han Fei was shocked by the scene in front of him. He had never seen such a large-scale war in his life. Even the battle against Jiang Taichu in the Creation Star Compass couldn't compare to the current first battlefield. In terms of size, the two were not even on the same level. Shimin Linglan was the same. She was clearly shocked by the first battlefield. 2. Han Fei's face turned dark. The asterisk starred, "You want to destroy the myriad races." Buzz. At that moment, Han Fei instantly activated the Star River source power in his body. As he issued an order in his heart, a large amount of purification light was activated in the collapsing and intact purification stars, turning into tens or even hundreds of billions of long knives. Buzz. These blades of purification rose and fell in the Skynet like an endless sea of knives. Someone was fleeing. When he crossed to another purification star, an ominous creature took the opportunity to take his life. He was already desperate, but suddenly, countless purification blades swept past him. In the next moment, the ominous creatures that were chasing him just now were all annihilated without even a chance to revive. Dozens of gods retreated as they fought, protecting the others in the rear to evacuate, but they were besieged. Someone shouted, "Brothers, let's drink and chat happily on the path of reincarnation." Someone laughed. Ominous B** stars, "I'll take you with me even if I die." Swish. 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 They were about to detonate all the purification thunder on their bodies and die together with the ominous. However, in the blink of an eye, a tide of purification blades instantly swept across all the ominous creatures around them, including more than 30 doomsday-level ominous creatures. The sea-quelling gods saved us? However, in the next moment, they discovered that something was wrong, because in their perception, all the purified stars spontaneously burst out with knife lights. In the blink of an eye, the knife lights gathered like a tide. Zhang Xuanyu, Xia Xiaochan, and Lu Renquang were all at the god-slaying level. Even if they retreated, it wouldn't be their turn to retreat immediately. At this moment, the three of them were fighting and retreating, all covered in wounds. If it weren't for the accumulation of a lot of purification thunder, they might have gone to the path of reincarnation to find Han Fei. Lu Renquang said, "Yu. In my opinion, let's slip away first. There are so many people. Even 2 or 3 of us leave, they can't tell." Zhang Xuanyu said, "Fatty, don't disgrace yourself. Do you really see anyone? Slip away?" Xiao Xiaochan was lost for words. "Quang, if you slip away now, will you keep slipping away in the future?" Lu Renquang said, "Look, the other party has thousands of god-slaying level ominous creatures. But on our side, there are less than 1,000 god-slayers in total. Of course we should return to the myriad god palace first and bombard them with the creation heavenly wheel." Crack. 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 Just as Lu Renquang was educating Zhang Xuanyu and Xia Xiaochan, purification blades completely covered them. In an instant, the god-slaying level ominous in front of them was instantly extinguished by the tide like balls of flames. Sh*T. Zhang Xuanyu asked in shock, "Who is attacking? Why is the noise so loud?" Lu Renquang said, "Hey, why does the shape of this knife look familiar? Isn't this the blood-drinking knife?" Hiss. Fei Fei is back? Zhang Xuanyu looked back in shock. However, he didn't see Han Fei, only the overwhelming purification knife light that swept across the entire Skynet. Xiao Xiaochan was also overjoyed. She hurriedly said, "Let's go back to the Myriad God Palace." Lu Renquang was lost for words. "Why don't you say I'm embarrassing myself now?" Zhang Xuanyu laughed and scolded, "Now that someone has taken action for us, it's not embarrassing at all." On the other side, Han Song, Luo Xiaobai, and the others were not far from the Myriad God Palace. This was because from the beginning, Xiao Xiaochan and Han Song chose this place because they were worried about Han Chani. After all, they had to take care of the kid and fight, so they had to be fully prepared. The closer to the Myriad God Palace, the safer they would be. Han Chani, who was retreating, exclaimed, "There are so many blades of purification. I can't perceive the end of them." Han Song smiled mysteriously. After a while, they returned to the Myriad God Palace first. At that moment, Han Chani and the others saw a familiar figure standing proudly beside the 9-turn heavenly wheel on the Myriad God Palace. The center of this person's eyebrows was shining with golden light, and his 2 fingers pointed at the Skynet. Han Chani said, "Ah. Stinky Daddy, you're finally back." At this moment, not only was Han Chani stunned, but everyone in the Myriad God Palace was dumbfounded the moment they saw Han Fei attack. "Isn't this power comparable to the Wheel of Annihilation? Who is this?" "I don't know. However, he is a dominator. He is definitely a dominator level powerhouse." At this moment, under the sweep of the infinite blade sea, almost all the ominous creatures in the entire Skynet had been killed. In fact, it was only normal that Han Fei could do this. If it weren't for the suppression of so many Dominator-level ominous creatures on the frontal battlefield, if it weren't for the fact that Senior Sister Shenlu was busy, they could have swept away the ominous here. However, they didn't have the time or opportunity to take action. For example, once the Master of Time took action, the other party's 18 Dominator-level ominous creatures would definitely try their best to stop him. However, on the first battlefield, everyone had experienced hundreds of battles and was used to seeing big scenes. Therefore, this endless sea of knife lights only shocked them for a moment before these people began to get busy again. Many people entered some of the arrays of the Myriad God Palace. Although they couldn't stay in the Skynet anymore, the battle had to continue. There were countless arrays on the walls of the palace of the Myriad God Palace, and there were also countless arrays in the palace. The arrays on both sides were interconnected, which was equivalent to having countless fixed batteries in the palace. The monarchs and gods who had just returned immediately occupied these fixed point batteries. However, the Myriad God Palace was so big that even if tens of millions of people filled it, it wouldn't be enough. Han Fei certainly knew that time was precious. He just glanced at Han Chani. "I'll talk to you after the battle." After that, Han Fei raised his hand, and the primordial 8 fierce swords appeared behind him. After Jing Guangming died, the primordial 8 fierce swords and the creation mystic yellow tower were naturally controlled by him. And the combat skills he wanted to use were also reserved on the 4th level of the creation divine prison. This supreme nature treasure could at most unleash the combat power of a sea quelling god with its own strength. But in the hands of a dominator, it was a Different story. When the Star River source power activated the primordial 8 fierce swords. In an instant, the 8 swords fused and appeared outside the Skynet in the blink of an eye. Over there, under the strong attack of the 7 Dominators, the Time Temple couldn't withstand it at all. But Han Fei could clearly tell that the 2 sides of the battlefield had just been broken through. In total, there were 14 Dominator-level ominous creatures, more than 10,000 God-slaying-level ominous creatures, and more than 100,000 Doomsday-level ominous creatures. If it were him in the past, he wouldn't have participated in such a battle at all, because he had no chance of winning. However, as a Supreme, he was very calm after understanding the combat power of a Dominator. Han Fei roared, "Kill!" Puff. On the side battlefield, a Dominator-level ominous felt a sword light suddenly appear in front of his eyes. He wanted to resist, but the momentum coming from the sword contained invincible fighting intent, the Tao of Slaughter God, the Supreme Will, and the terrifying Star River source power that he couldn't resist at all. Bang! This Dominator was instantly pierced through, his body burning with milky flames. In the blink of an eye, even his infinite ominous aura was burning. Many of the monarchs didn't know what Han Fei had killed, because their perception wasn't enough to cross so far at once to see the situation on the side battlefield. However, some gods and god-slaying level powerhouses exclaimed. Seeing this, the Phoenix Patriarch's eyes flashed. When Han Fei summoned billions of purifying knife lights, he knew that Han Fei had already advanced to the Dominator level and was extremely powerful. However, at first, he didn't think that Han Fei could be as strong as the Master of Time and Shen Lu. Therefore, he was both surprised and delighted to see Han Fei kill a Dominator-level ominous creature with a single slash. He was shocked that Han Fei's strength far exceeded his imagination, and he was delighted that with Han Fei around, the 2 side battlefields could be safe. Immediately, the Phoenix Patriarch shouted, "Congratulations to Human Emperor Han Fei for becoming a Dominator. He killed a Dominator-level ominous with 1 slash. Congratulations to the myriad races." At this moment, in the Skynet, tens of millions of strong masters of the myriad races were retreating. Everyone's heart was heavy and pessimistic. This time, it had only been 3 days since the war started, and they were forced to abandon the remaining Skynet. It wouldn't be long before the myriad god palace was penetrated. At this moment, the Phoenix Patriarch's voice spread in all directions, instantly shocking the retreating powerhouses of the myriad races. Kill a Dominator with 1 slash? How is it possible? Isn't Human Emperor Han Fei only a great monarch? This. Really? Is Human Emperor also participating in the battle? Why didn't I know? There aren't many humans here. Hearing this, Xia Xiaochan and the other 2 grinned. Zhang Xuanyu sighed. It's ridiculous. Is this a great monarch directly entering the Dominator realm? Lu Renquang sighed. Do we have to wait until now? We were almost killed. Xia Xiaochan said, "Why are you nagging? Come back." Even Han Chani couldn't help but look at Han Song in shock. Didn't you go to find a lover? How did you become a Dominator? As she spoke, Han Chani kept glancing at Shiman Linglan behind Han Fei. As for Shiman Linglan, she also looked at Han Chani, and a rare faint smile appeared on her cold face. Cough, cough. Han Song coughed awkwardly. At this moment, Han Fei looked at the Phoenix Patriarch in surprise. The Phoenix Patriarch was also looking at him and said via voice transmission. The myriad races need confidence now. The war is not optimistic. I hope human Emperor can kill more enemies. Although Han Fei looked at the Phoenix Patriarch, his hands didn't stop. He held the creation mystic yellow tower in his hand, and with loud bangs, the creation mystic yellow tower grew larger and larger, and then Han Fei threw it to another battlefield on the side. Neither side could resist it, but under his power, the creation mystic yellow tower could temporarily restrain several Dominator-level ominous creatures. In the next moment, Han Fei instantly disappeared, and the billions of purifying knife lights crossed the endless void and appeared on one of the side battlefields. In the blink of an eye, the Dominator-level ominous was still burning. It had only been 1 second since it was pierced. Han Fei's sudden appearance immediately attracted the attention of the remaining 6 Dominators. One of them shouted, "Human Emperor, you've advanced unknowingly. However, how many people can you fight in a mere 1,000 years?" Han Fei's breakthrough was in the creation star compass, so the ominous didn't know it. What the ominous noticed was only old Han and his mother, because they were the masters of the Sea of Stars. But the ominous didn't care, because they didn't think that 2 newly promoted Dominators would affect them. As they expected, although old Han and his mother could fight 2 alone, their performance was not too exaggerated. After all, their breakthrough time was too short. With old Han and his mother as examples, the Dominator rank ominous didn't think much of Han Fei. Although it knew that Han Fei walked the path of Supreme, it didn't retreat when it met Han Fei. Instead, it wanted the 6 of them to work together to take Han Fei down. However, Han Fei transformed, and 6 old bodies suddenly appeared. Having mastered the time-splitting technique, it was not a problem for Han Fei to instantly use a few old bodies. In the next moment, 6 knife lights dazzled. These Dominators also triggered the endless ominous aura behind them at the same time, each like a peerless demon god. Puff. 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 However, something unexpected happened. The ominous aura they triggered was cut apart by Han Fei's knife as if it were made of paper. In the next moment, the 3 of them were directly killed by Han Fei. Different from the Master of Time, his power of time mainly interfered with the other party's time, vitality, and speed. In battle, he would at most use the time-cutting technique to fight. However, in the entire 6 divine techniques of time, only the time-splitting technique was considered an extremely offensive technique. The time predicament needed to be set up in advance. The other techniques such as the time resurrection technique, the indestructible technique, the predicament technique, the overlapping technique, and the sky ceiling lock were all auxiliary and defensive. Therefore, the head-on killing ability of the time temple was limited. Therefore, although the Master of Time was very powerful, in terms of killing techniques, it depended on the strong masters like Han Fei who had fought since they were young. Seeing this, the other 3 were extremely shocked. They were spared because they had triggered the ominous tide earlier and were about to pounce into the Skynet. And they discovered, to their shock, that the river of life had been severed. Even if there was endless ominous aura, it couldn't rebuild itself. The 3 of them realized that something was wrong and were about to retreat. However, in an instant, millions of invincible fist lights, carrying the suppressing pressure of a supreme, hammered the 3 of them crazily like sandbags. Han Fei's strength was already extremely powerful. The terrifying power of 24 pieces of star rivers was not something ordinary dominators could compare to. Not to mention the ominous master, even the masters of all races couldn't resist his terrifying power. It was like asking senior sister Shenlu to attack the masters of all races. She might be able to beat them into dust in a few clashes. The difference was that whether senior sister Shenlu was the master of all races or the dominator level ominous, she might not be able to instantly kill the other party. This had nothing to do with how strong she was, because the Tao of Slaughter God only had a little annihilation characteristic and didn't have any purification characteristics at all. Even if the ominous was torn into pieces by senior sister Shenlu, as long as a trace of it escaped, it could be resurrected. However, against Han Fei, whether it was the masters of the myriad races or the dominator level ominous, as long as they died, they would really die. Han Fei wouldn't give them a chance to revive unless their star origin power far exceeded Han Fei's. They could even touch the river of life and forcibly shatter Han Fei's control of the law of life. There were definitely such strong masters, but it definitely didn't include the present dominators. Therefore, under the dumbfounded gaze of the Time Temple Master and a group of sea-quelling gods, in just a second, under the bombardment of infinite fist lights, the 6 dominator-level ominous creatures were forcibly beaten into nothingness. Gulp. So strong. The Phoenix Patriarch was stunned. Is it so simple for Han Fei to break through to the dominator level? Why do I feel that the strength Han Fei unleashed is stronger than the Master of Time? Since Han Fei appeared, he has killed 7 dominator-level ominous creatures in less than 5 seconds. Those who don't know better would think that a temple master of the 3 temples has descended. The supreme path is indeed terrifying. The Phoenix Patriarch immediately came back to his senses. He didn't care what path Han Fei took as long as he could fight. In the next moment, the Phoenix Patriarch roared again, Human Emperor Han Fei, kill another 6 dominator-level ominous in 1 second. Congratulations to the myriad races. Everyone, the ominous will definitely lose this battle. The Phoenix Patriarch wasn't bragging. On the first battlefield, if Shenlu hadn't been restrained by the ominous, no matter how many ordinary dominator level ominous came, it would have been a chaotic situation. At this moment, the dominator level ominous that was fighting senior sister Shenlu naturally discovered Han Fei's arrival. He had wanted to lure the death god into the trap, but he didn't expect it to be Han Fei. A supreme? This dominator-level ominous creature naturally knew Han Fei. He just didn't expect Han Fei to really make a breakthrough. Because the time was too short. They didn't give Han Fei a chance to cultivate in seclusion at all. Even so, Han Fei still made a breakthrough, and once he made a breakthrough with the supreme technique, he would definitely become a supreme. In history, Song Tian and Li Daoi were both supremes who had blocked the ominous. They could be said to be the greatest heroes of the chaotic era and the primordial era. Now, another supreme had appeared in the myriad races. How could he allow this? The dominator-level ominous immediately roared, Shenlu, do you think you're the only one with a trump card? Since we can't meet the death god, we can kill a supreme. The dominator-level ominous suddenly threw itself into the boundless ominous mist. Master Primordial, please descend with me as your carrier. The expressions of Shenlu and the Master of Time changed at the same time. And the Master of Time roared, Shenlu, stop him. Han Fei couldn't help but look in Shenli's direction. When senior sister Shen Lu unleashed the power of her claw, his heart stirred. This Star River source power seemed to be much stronger than his now. Yes, with just a glance, he knew that the Star River source power controlled by senior sister Shenlu exceeded his. But even so, her full-strength claw didn't shake the boundless ominous mist. Instead, it was poured back by the ominous aura, and even its sharp claws were shattered. How is it possible? Isn't it said that there is no ominous beyond the Dominator level? Buzz. The primordial 8 fierce swords fused again. In the next moment when Senior Sister Shenlu attacked, the sword of shattering also rushed tens of thousands of light years away. For people like Han Fei, who had mastered dozens of pieces of Star River origin, this distance could be covered with a thought. However, the sword that contained the supreme and invincible will was blocked by a strange gray barrier. Buzz. The vibration power formed by the sword tip and the barrier instantly crushed the surrounding endless sea of stars. All the broken stars were almost instantly crushed into powder. But even with such power, the barrier didn't move at all. Instead, the primordial 8 fierce swords began to tremble slightly. Crack. Suddenly, a crisp sound appeared. It turned out that a slight crack appeared on the primordial 8 fierce swords. What? This was the first time Han Fei had seen a supreme nature treasure broken. He could imagine how powerful the other party's barrier was. However, in order to create such a barrier, the other party had paid a price. The moment this barrier appeared, with the Dominator level ominous as the center, the ominous mist in the nearly 10 star rivers outside began to fade. As if buying time for this barrier. Ha ha ha. Shenlu, master of time, human emperor, you are destined to lose this battle. If it weren't for the barrier of the Sea of Stars, you would have long been slaughtered. However, it's not too late now. Don't you suspect that I am a creature above the Dominator level? You're right. I am. In the next moment, the strength of this Dominator level ominous was growing crazily. Shenlu attacked crazily, and the feathers that filled the sky shattered the void. But she stopped Han Fei from continuing to attack. Little junior brother, the battle is coming. Continue to kill as many as you can. You might not have a chance later. No chance? Hearing that, Han Fei didn't dare to be negligent. The sea of purification knives that he mobilized rushed into the army of the god-slaying level ominous in the blink of an eye. Like a surging wave, it extinguished nearly 100 god-slaying level ominous in the blink of an eye. The 5 old bodies also activated a killing mode here. Wherever the supreme will crushed, wherever the knife light and fist passed, the wind blew away. And not a blade of grass grew. None of the god-slaying level ominous creatures could withstand the power of Han Fei's punch. However, compared to the god-slaying level ominous, the Dominator level ominous was the biggest problem. Rumble. In an instant, Han Fei turned into billions of lightning bolts and killed his way into the other side of the battlefield. There were also 7 Dominator level ominous creatures here. 2 of them were suppressed by the creation Mystic Yellow Tower and were thinking about how to break through it. As for the other 5, after seeing Han Fei instantly kill the 7 Dominator level ominous creatures, they chose to run. But how could Han Fei allow it? He immediately turned into billions of lightning bolts and blocked them. Clank. With the blood sky blade in hand, Han Fei immediately killed the slowest one. The other 4 rushed back into the ominous mist, and Han Fei followed closely behind. With a golden light on his body, he charged into the ominous mist. Alone. While the sea-quelling gods were nervous, they saw golden beams of light erupting from the depths of the ominous mist. In the next moment, a crack stretched across an entire star river, cutting a chasm in the void. The ominous mist that was cut open seemed to be crazily swallowed by some power. The sea-quelling gods looked in through the golden hole that burst out of the ominous mist, only to find that the 10-vine demon purification pot was dancing wildly, and countless ominous creatures were being killed and swallowed by the demon purification pot. Although people wondered where the demon purification pot got its 10 vines, its power was really shocking. Such a huge ominous mist was swallowed by a small calabash. Who wouldn't be shocked to witness such power with their own eyes? At this moment, Han Fei walked out of the chasm that cut off the ominous mist and purified the 2 Dominator-level ominous creatures under the creation Mystic Yellow Tower. At this moment, killing intent soared from his body. Seeing that the more than 5,000 god-slaying level ominous creatures and 100,000 doomsday-level ominous creatures still wanted to escape to the Skynet or other battlefields, Han Fei snorted and threw out the blood sky blade. Blade out, immortal slaying. Puff. 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 The blood sky blade pierced through hundreds of god-slaying level ominous creatures in the blink of an eye. However, this slash didn't stop. Han Fei controlled the blood sky blade to kill the enemy with his spiritual will. At the same time, his fist mark fell on the large group of doomsday-level ominous creatures. Almost every punch he threw crushed dozens of doomsday-level ominous creatures. In just 10 seconds, a person had killed through 2 side battlefields. 14 Dominator-level ominous creatures had all been killed. Some of the 10,000 god-slaying level ominous creatures had been obliterated by the time division technique, some had been overturned by the sea of purified knives, some had been killed by the immortal slaying knife, and some were fleeing. Han Fei entered the arena and started a massacre. His speed was so fast that even Shen Lu and the Master of Time were surprised. This was because the combat power that Han Fei unleashed at this moment was much stronger than they had expected. Although Han Fei walked the supreme path, he had just embarked on it after all. It was already extremely rare for him to have his current combat power. However, Han Fei was alone after all. Even if he used the time division technique, the power he could unleash without a long-term plan was limited. He could quickly kill the Dominator-level ominous, firstly because the other party underestimated him, secondly because of the law of life, and secondly because there were fewer Dominator-level ominous creatures gathered together. Attacking the god-slaying level and the doomsday-level ominous was like cutting grass. Although it was easy, he had to slowly cut them. It was unrealistic to kill tens of thousands of god-slaying level ominous with a slap. Just as he was hesitating whether to solve the rear battlefield or help the Master of Time, Shiman Linglan said telepathically, "I'll go to the rear battlefield. You go to the front battlefield." As they talked, Shiman Linglan had already appeared in the rear battlefield. She used the power of her bloodline without hesitation. Hope gathered, and her combat power exceeded 40 million points of origin power. As the time sky ceiling lock was set up, the battlefield behind was barely stabilized. Lei Heng was still surprised. A Palace Master level powerhouse? Little Junior brother is really lucky. Fifth senior brother sneered. You're just a thunder spirit. What do you know about luck with women? Lei Heng speaks without thinking. Sister-in-law, don't mind him. Shiman Linglan activated the time-sealing skylock and replied, "Greetings, senior brothers." Shiman Linglan went to the rear battlefield, and Han Fei appeared on the frontal battlefield in an instant. Buzz. Endless divine brilliance suddenly poured into the body of the Master of Time. The latter couldn't help but feel refreshed. The law of life was indeed extraordinary. Just this blow could restore 10% of his strength. Without communicating with the Master of Time at all, Han Fei charged at the 18 Dominator-level ominous creatures without blinking. As for the 18 Dominator-level ominous creatures, they looked at each other and shouted, "Retreat to the mist." They didn't want to fight Han Fei or try their luck. They had seen Han Fei's combat power. To them, he was almost comparable to half of the masters of the Three Temples. His combat power wasn't even weaker than Shen Li's. The Master of Time immediately shouted, "Forget about these Dominator-level ominous creatures and help Shen Lu. As long as we can take down the Dominator-level ominous creature opposite her, it's only a matter of time before we win this battle." Han Fei glanced around and found that there were nearly 60,000 god-slaying level powerhouses here. He was speechless, thinking to himself, "What made you think we can win?" Although he killed the 14 gods on the side battlefield immediately, the ominous was still powerful. If he no longer protected the side battlefield, the ominous army might make a comeback in a moment. At that time it would only be a matter of time before the Skynet collapsed. Once the Skynet completely dissipated, the myriad god palace would become the last battlefield of all races in the Sea of Stars. Although Han Fei didn't know what senior sister Shen Lu was doing, he knew that she was moving in an injured state. Just as Han Fei was about to help Shen Lu, the Dominator-level ominous creature who was fighting her immediately burst out with supreme, divine might. With a bang, the primordial 8 fierce swords were sent flying and trembled non-stop. As for senior sister Shen Lu, she had been swallowing and spitting the divine light born from the surrounding star rivers while attacking the Dominator-level ominous opposite her. She erupted with the killing intent of the Tao of Slaughter God, trying to corrode the other party's protective power. But at this moment, the Dominator-level ominous had already swallowed nearly half of the ominous mist around him, and his temperament had risen to a level that shocked Han Fei. Swish! 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 Han Fei appeared beside senior sister Shen Lu and injected life divine brilliance into her body crazily. He asked, "Senior sister, why do I feel that the other party's combat power seems to far exceed 40 pieces of Star River source power?" Yes, Han Fei was not stupid. He was also a dominator now, a supreme dominator. He could feel the void fluctuations secretly triggered in the other party's body. However, senior sister Shen Lu replied, 49 pieces. If you can control 49 pieces of Star River source power, you will be in existence above the Dominator level. How much? Han Fei was dumbfounded. This guy had the combat power of 49 pieces of Star River source power, which was really unexpected. He had thought that he was already strong enough after reaching the Supreme Realm and walking the second level of the path of invincibility. But now it seemed that he had overestimated himself. Originally, although he felt that senior sister Shen Lu had surpassed him, she was the second most powerful person in the Void Temple after all. To put it bluntly, she should be ranked fourth in the three temples, so he could understand that Shen Li's control of the Star River source power had surpassed his. However, as soon as he appeared, he encountered a Dominator-level ominous that controlled 49 pieces of Star River source power. This clearly refreshed his self-knowledge. Besides, the Dominator-level ominous seemed to have used some unbelievable power. According to Senior Sister Shenlu, wasn't this guy trying to break through the Dominator realm? The other party had already forced Senior Sister Shenlu and the Master of Time to this point before he even surpassed the Dominator level. What would happen if he completed this advancement? Although Senior Sister Shenlu seemed to be doing something extraordinary at this moment, it was obvious that Senior Sister Shenli's current behavior couldn't raise her to the level of surpassing the Dominator. Otherwise, how could the divine musician be second Senior Sister? She should be the eldest Senior Sister. Seeing this, Han Fei gritted his teeth and roared. In the next moment, the blood qi in his body surged like a tide. The first level of the heavenly Tao avatar, 10,000 blood body, finally erupted. Instantly, Han Fei's control of the Star River source power soared from 24 pieces to 31 pieces. However, these 31 pieces of Star River origin energy were already Han Fei's limit. Even if Senior Sister Shenlu bought him another 100 years to continue cultivating in the chaotic source and improve his physique, his ultimate combat power would only stop at 38 pieces of Star River origin energy. If he wanted to continue to become stronger, he could only take the Tao of all living beings and eat the fruit of creation. In the sea of bitterness, Han Fei had already had a feeling that if he walked the path of all living beings, his strength would probably double again. This was probably why his teacher left this path for him. However, there should have been many people who could walk the path of all living beings, but very few people had really embarked on this path. Among the strong masters he knew, only eldest senior brother seemed to walk the path of all living beings. However, Han Fei didn't despair. The amount of Star River source power didn't mean absolute suppression. Otherwise, how could eldest senior brother fight the ominous that had surpassed the Dominator rank for thousands of years without being defeated? Even senior brother undead was qualified to fight the ominous that had surpassed the Dominator rank. Han Fei's strength soared again, which couldn't be hidden from the Master of Time and Senior Sister Shenlu. Senior Sister Shenlu saw that Han Fei's temperament suddenly changed, which was an extremely cold temperament. Little junior brother, are you transforming the power of the heavenly Tao? You can't transform the heavenly Tao often. You should use this technique carefully. Senior sister, I have my own plans. In the next moment, Han Fei had already rushed to the Dominator level ominous. In the blink of an eye, as he issued an order in his heart, the demon purification pot extended out from between his eyebrows. To deal with an ominous creature of this level, Han Fei made himself stronger, just to better control the demon purification pot. After all, the demon purification pot used to suppress the ominous. Sure enough, as soon as Han Fei approached, the demon purification pot quickly took action. 10 vines appeared at the same time. It was the Dominator level ominous. At this moment, its expression changed drastically. Endless ominous mist immediately surged over and rushed Han Fei away. However, when had the demon purification pot ever been afraid of the ominous mist? The 10 vines pierced through the mist at the same time. Roar. So what if there are 10 vines? Do you really think the complete demon purification pot can suppress the endless ominous mist? Han Fei snorted. Humph. It's one thing if I can suppress the ominous mist or Not. I'll suppress you first, light of purification. Buzz. Light surged from Han Fei's body, and in the next moment, he rushed into the ominous mist. The ominous mist here was instantly penetrated by the light of purification, leaving thousands of holes. It was obvious that the Dominator rank ominous hadn't completed its advancement yet. Han Fei also unleashed his strongest combat power at the same time, took out the demon purification pot, and cooperated with senior sister Shen Lu to flatten the ominous mist nearby. Of course, this only made the Dominator-level ominous appear from the ominous mist and couldn't directly penetrate the ominous barrier on his body. However, at this moment, all the 10 vines of the demon purification pot were stuck to the ominous barrier. Han Fei could feel that the infinite ominous aura was being swallowed by the demon purification pot, causing the speed of the Dominator-level ominous to stagnate to a certain extent. Seeing this, senior sister Shen Lu was slightly taken aback. In fact, when Han Fei had just broken through to the Supreme Dominator realm, although he had 9 pieces of Star River source power, although they were very high, this didn't mean that it would change anything. Compared to the 9 pieces of Star River origin, she cared more about the law of life that Han Fei had mastered and how well he could exert the law of life when he was still a Dominator. However, at this moment, it seemed that Han Fei, in his peak state, coupled with the demon purification pot, had withstood the ominous that was almost at the peak of the Dominator realm. Senior sister Shen Lu suddenly shouted, "Little junior brother, help me block it for a while. Call me when you can't hold on anymore." Huh? Han Fei was dumbfounded. What was going on? Wasn't he overestimating himself? He had just advanced to the Dominator realm and hadn't raised his strength to the limit. However, at this moment, senior sister Shen Lu had already disappeared. When Han Fei saw senior sister Shen Lu appear, she was already more than a dozen Star Rivers away. Yes, senior sister Shen Lu had really left. She couldn't wait for the light of the Great Tao to gather voluntarily. She wanted to swallow it voluntarily. But this would take time after all, and Han Fei controlled the demon purification pot and had the strength of more than 30 pieces of Star River source power. In her opinion, he seemed to be able to resist it for a while. Han Fei complained in his heart. He never expected things to develop to this point. The Dominator-level ominous roared, "Shen Lu, you may not underestimate me. Even if the two of you join forces, you can't defeat me, let alone this human emperor alone." "Humph, who are you underestimating?" Han Fei snorted. Although he complained in his heart, it didn't mean that he was really afraid. Han Fei held the law enforcement divine chain in his hand and injected source power into it. With the chain as a knife, he gathered the supreme will, the invincible battle suit, the Tao of Slaughter God, and life law. The law enforcement divine chain was not blocked by any barrier. It could even penetrate this ominous barrier. Rumble. The void rumbled and trembled violently, as if the entire sea of stars was trembling like a broken painting, producing swishing sounds as if it was really about to shatter. However, the Dominator-level ominous grabbed the law enforcement divine chain. The demon purification pot was indeed tricky. He wanted to break through to the Dominator realm, but he was interrupted by the demon purification pot. In addition, Han Fei was provoking him at this moment, so he was extremely angry. The holy brilliance pouring out of the law enforcement divine chain, intertwined with the ominous aura emitted by the Dominator rank, turning from holy brilliance into surging darkness. Obviously, Han Fei's current strength was not enough to seriously injure the Dominator-level Ominous. Fortunately, the Dominator-level Ominous seemed to be afraid of the demon purification pot, so it didn't fight Han Fei for long. He shouted, "Human Emperor, let me show you that the demon purification pot is not omnipotent." Seal. The ominous barrier around the Dominator immediately moved and wrapped the demon purification pot. Seeing this, Han Fei's pupils were constricted slightly. Good lord, you're a tough guy. This person probably knew that he couldn't beat the demon purification pot, so he might as well gather the power of the surrounding endless ominous mist to temporarily suppress the demon purification pot. As for him, he could temporarily take the time to attack him without the demon purification pot. In terms of his strength, it would be extremely difficult to block a Dominator-level Ominous. Sure enough, in the next moment, the Dominator-level Ominous instantly appeared in front of Han Fei. The ominous aura surged and collided with Han Fei with all its strength. Rumble. Han Fei was immediately sent flying. He felt that the invincible golden light on his body began to flash and disappear. This scene far exceeded his expectations. This was because he was now in the second level of the path of invincibility, the invincible body state. In this state, he was immune to both body and soul. As a Dominator, even if the Dominator Ominous controlled 49 pieces of Star River source power, how could he be much stronger than him? How could he reach the upper limit of his invincible body with one blow? That's not right. Suddenly, Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. He felt a fatal threat. He immediately shattered a piece of flesh on his palm, which immediately burst out with infinite purifying divine brilliance. And in the divine brilliance, there was a wisp of gray powder, trying to corrode Han Fei again. What the hell is this? Han Fei was shocked. Even the second level of the path of invincibility couldn't resist the gray powder. God knew what would happen if he was contaminated. In the next moment, the Master of Time said, "Don't touch that thing." The destruction of the dragon race in the past seems to be related to this thing. The fall of the strange beast lineage is also related to this thing. Hiss. Han Fei's heart sank when he heard that. The dragon race in the past could be said to be extremely powerful. Even the current dragon race could be said to have as many strong masters as clouds. The only problem was that they were cursed to need to eat. As for the strange beasts, they were one of the 6 ancient lineages. The strongest of the strange beasts, who was the father of the Emperor Sparrow, could even fight the ominous alone. He never expected that these 2 races would be killed by this gray powder. What was this? Han Fei couldn't help but feel a little scared. Fortunately, he was a Dominator and had the protection of the invincible body. Otherwise, he might have been tricked by this blow. Is this thing a curse? Han Fei wasn't sure, but at this moment, he was very angry. Swish. 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 Han Fei's other 5 old bodies abandoned the side battlefield of the 10,000 God Palace and descended at the same time. The 5 old bodies burst out with the time-sealing sky lock at the same time, directly sealing the Dominator-level Ominous and Han Fei himself. Han Fei sneered. Ominous? I'd like to see how many you can fight alone. As the only offensive technique of the 6 divine techniques of time, the time-splitting technique was also one of the strongest abilities. It could summon him from the timeline, and his combat power methods were 100% replicated. At this moment, the 6 of them activated the time sky sealing lock at the same time, trapping this place. Senior Sister Shenlu was seeking a breakthrough, the Master of Time was guarding the battlefield, and the demon purification pot was consuming endless, ominous mist. And he had no choice but to participate in the game against the Dominator-level ominous. With the previous experience, Han Fei no longer fought this ominous head-on. The 6 original bodies erupted with the sword of breakthrough at the same time. At the same time, the law of life surged on each of them. Among them, 2 old bodies rushed into the river of life and attacked the Dominator-level ominous river of life. The remaining 2 old bodies immediately entered different timelines, trying to quickly create a time predicament. After all, once Senior Sister Shenli's breakthrough was completed, she would definitely be able to cooperate with the demon purification pot to kill or expel the Dominator-level ominous. Another old body threw his rod into the time river and began to fish. In the end, Han Fei's original body held the blood sky blade, surrounded by the brilliant primordial 8 fierce swords, and with the creation mystic yellow tower hanging above his head. Han Fei believed that he had armed himself to his teeth. However, in the next moment, the time river was instantly invaded by an ominous. The fishing pole he had just thrown out was completely melted by the dark ominous. Then, as soon as the 2 old bodies in different timelines stepped in, they found that this place was full of ominous mist, and they had no chance to create a time predicament. Having no choice, they could only take the initiative to return to the normal timeline. As for the 2 old bodies that tried to shake the Dominator-level ominous, they discovered that this guy's river of life was actually black. Han Fei was about to attack the river of life itself, only to find that a mist covered his river of life. In reality, the Dominator said ominously, "You have no idea how strong one will be in this realm." Almost at the same time as the Dominator opened his mouth, Han Fei's other old bodies felt an invisible hand pressing over at the same time. The throbbing just now appeared again. The gray powder again? Although Han Fei didn't see it, he had to disperse his old body. He knew the advantages and disadvantages of his old body. Its advantage was naturally to summon a few of his combat power at the same time, but the disadvantage was obvious. After all, it came from time. Once the time river itself was contaminated, he might be accidentally tricked. At this moment, Han Fei finally understood why the Master of Time seemed so powerless in the face of such a strong master. It was because the other party had a way to crack the strongest time-splitting technique. Immediately, only he and the Dominator-level ominous were left in the time sealing lock. The Dominator-level ominous immediately shouted, "I have no time to play with. You get lost." The Dominator-level ominous seemed to have made an important decision, and immediately took out a strange small bottle. As the gray powder inside was poured out, Han Fei immediately retreated. This B***** had so much of this powder. Just a wisp of them could break his invincible body. At this moment, he had taken out the entire bottle. How could he fight? Some gray powder poured out of the bottle and instantly attached to the time sealing sky lock, melting it in the blink of an eye. As for the ominous that was already at the peak of the Dominator realm, it smiled coldly. "You know nothing about our background. Except for tenacious resistance, you don't know anything and can't do anything. Today, I'll let you to know what it means to surpass the Dominator realm." With that, the Dominator-level ominous appeared dozens of star rivers away in an instant. This place was still covered by the ominous mist. The demon purification pot was temporarily trapped. If Han Fei wanted to continue to use it, he had to spend some time breaking the barrier and taking advantage of. This time, he could continue to make a breakthrough. Han Fei gritted his teeth. The demon purification pot was very strong, but its strength was the last fruit of creation. Although the demon purification pot was powerful, it was not invincible and couldn't completely suppress the ominous. Even if he took back the demon purification pot now, so what? Unless he swallowed the fruit of creation, he would eventually be trapped. With this in mind, Han Fei no longer hesitated and immediately chased after them again. However, this time, Han Fei attacked the Dominator-level ominous more from a distance. Seeing that the endless ominous mist began to gather and was about to condense into a new ominous barrier, Han Fei immediately snorted. Okay, anyway, I just need to stop you for a moment. If you want to play, I'll play with you. Buzz. In the next moment, Han Fei's figure appeared above the myriad god palace. Han Fei roared, "Rise." The word rise resounded throughout the sea of stars. The purified stars in the Skynet all began to tremble. In the next moment, refined stars disappeared into the Skynet one after another. Swish. 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 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1,000,000, 10 million. When the billions of stars in the Skynet disappeared into thin air, all the strong masters of the myriad races were shocked. What kind of King Heaven defying ability was this? Xia Xiaochan and the others were shocked to see this shocking scene as soon as they returned. Xia Xiaochan keenly noticed that Han Fei's temperament seemed to have undergone a subtle change, which seemed to be a sense of distance. It wasn't just Xia Xiaochan. Han Chani and Han Fei were of the same bloodline. At this moment, she vaguely discovered that her bloodline with her father seemed to be separated, which made her face turn pale. She realized that Han Fei had become stronger, but this strength seemed to cost him a lot. Because the Skynet had been taken away by Han Fei, the battlefield in the rear no longer existed. The only place they could guard was the myriad god palace. At this moment, Shiman Linglan saw Han Fei borrow the power of the heavenly Tao again, and her heart sank. She threw the blade of hope at Han Fei without hesitation. Han Fei glanced in Shiman Linglan's direction, opened his hand, and let the blade of hope enter his body. In the next moment, Han Fei disappeared above the myriad god palace. On the Dominator-level ominous battlefield, billions of stars were shining with the light of purification at the same time. The Dominator-level ominous was speechless. Wasn't this guy a lunatic? He didn't even want the entire Skynet just to stop him for a moment? This was the last barrier of the myriad races. If the Skynet collapsed, how long could the myriad god palace resist it? The Dominator-level ominous was completely enraged. If the Skynet array of the myriad races was really so easy to break, why would it need to go through millions of years and eras? He grinned ferociously. Shenlu is right. It's indeed a little difficult to take down both the first battlefield and the sea realm. Since you have given up the Skynet and bet on the myriad god palace, I'll let you understand that a gambler will eventually pay the price for his stupid actions. Han Fei sneered. If you win the bet, you won't have a chance anymore. Even if You lose the bet, so what? It's nothing more than the destruction of the myriad races a few days earlier. The moment the two of them talked, billions of purification stars exploded one after another. Boom, boom, boom. The ominous barrier that the ominous dominator had just condensed collapsed in the blink of an eye without the envelopment of the subsequent ominous mist. At the same time, the ominous barrier that besieged the demon purification pot was also surrounded by purifying stars and began to explode crazily. The light of purification enveloped the sea of stars and blew up, making the night as bright as day. Yes, Han Fei successfully stopped the Dominator-level ominous from continuing to upgrade. However, from the ominous mist of the myriad god palace, Dominator-level ominous creatures suddenly walked out one after another. In the blink of an eye, more than 30 ominous creatures came, and the number was rapidly increasing. Obviously, these Dominator-level ominous creatures weren't on this battlefield in the first place. They came only because of the ominous fighting with Han Fei summoned all of them. Shen Lu and the Master of Time were right. The ominous army had indeed split into two groups, preparing to destroy the myriad races together. At the moment the Dominator-level ominous creatures arrived, at the same time, 9 distanceless gates appeared at the same time. The 10 Yama kings arrived, together with a boundless death aura. Countless undead creatures kept walking out of the death aura. However, the figure of the death god didn't appear. This also meant that there should be powerful Dominator-level ominous creatures in the dark that hadn't appeared yet. The death god couldn't leave yet. All he could do was to send 10 Yama kings and a large number of undead creatures. However, Han Fei didn't care if the immortal temple came or not. This was because a pearl appeared in his hand, one of the 7 divine realms left behind by Li Daoi, the chaotic storm. Han Fei flicked his finger, and the pearl that represented the chaotic storm appeared above the myriad god palace. The void around the myriad god palace began to tremble violently, and the surging storm began to wreak havoc. In the blink of an eye, a storm barrier surrounded the myriad god palace. Chaotic storm? Many people spoke in surprise. Someone was shocked. The chaotic storm has disappeared for an era. Has Han Fei found it? Many strong masters were relieved. Okay, with the wind escape storm, we can at least resist it for a while. Someone frowned. You're thinking too much. Don't you see how many ominous Dominator-level powerhouses have come? Someone couldn't help but ask blankly, what happened? Why did the battle suddenly become so strange and unpredictable? The Master of Time, Shen Lu, who was seizing the time to collect the light of the Great Tao, and some other people in the myriad god palace who knew the inside story all sighed. Had Li Daoi finally passed on the 7 divine realms to others? However, every time Han Fei used one, it meant that the power protecting the sea realm would be reduced. Once the 7 divine realms were used up, there would be no need to fight this war that lasted for several eras. This was because the sea realm didn't even have the last barrier. It could only be reduced to fish meat and at the mercy of others. But Han Fei didn't care so much. He retracted the demon purification pot and charged at the Dominator-level ominous again. He sneered. I'd like to see if you can create a third barrier. Bang! 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 The two parties fought again, but because of the existence of the demon purification pot, the two parties still collided in the air, causing cracks to appear in the sea of stars from time to time, as if they were going to blast a hole in the world. However, in the end, Han Fei was still weaker. Even in such a long distance. Clash, Han Fei's invincible body almost collapsed several times. Tweet. Less than half an hour after the fierce battle, a soft cry spread throughout the sea of stars. The Dominator-level ominous expression changed drastically. At this moment, he knew that another master at the level of Master of the Void had been born. At the same time, eldest senior brother, who was fighting the real ominous on the path of no return, put on a rare faint smile. Eldest senior brother said calmly, "Undead, go. Leave this to me." Upon hearing this, flames danced in senior brother Undead's skeleton pupils. "You know, this is not a solution after all." Eldest senior brother's tone was a little relaxed for once. "At least, I'll solve one. It's up to you who's next." Eldest senior brother pushed senior brother Undead across the infinite sea of stars and pushed him to the first battlefield in one fell swoop. The ominous creature that was fighting eldest senior brother roared angrily. "Void, without you, the sea of stars can no longer resist my steps. Shenlu can't resist me." Near the path of return, the infinite sea of stars began to collapse. A boundless void enveloped this world and countless star rivers. Even the ominous couldn't escape. Eldest senior brother said calmly, "Whether we can block it or not, you can't see it anyway." With that, eldest senior brother turned into nothingness and finally condensed into a void, floating into the path he had guarded for countless years. On the first battlefield, the sudden appearance of senior brother Undead made Shenlu, senior brother Azure Dragon, and fifth senior brother realize something. Even Fengyu had guessed it. The Master of Time sighed. "The Void. You've finally got your wish. You've embarked on that path in the end." Han Fei's face changed drastically. "Senior brother Undead, where is eldest senior brother?" However, senior brother Undead bowed deeply in the direction of the path of no return. "Eldest senior brother, rest in peace."